Let me refill my water and I'll move us on to the next one.
All right, I'm going to get some too. Hey, and you do make a good point about the... Oh, never mind, you left. Okay.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Let's Go to the Ring, where we take a look at the good old days and not so good old days of World Championship Wrestling, series by series. I'm your host, Bob Moore, and I'm joined by a man who won the Universal Podcasting Federation title at our last show, only to have it immediately discontinued, Alec Pridgeon.
Thanks a lot, Dusty.
And our resident squirrel form animagus, John Mullins. How's it going today, guys?
Pretty good, pretty good.
No, pretty good.
So can you keep it up for the whole show?
Oh, I hope not.
It would improve the show, I would think. At least my portion of the commentary.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Things just kind of ended up timed this way, but it seems kind of appropriate that our first recording session of the new year has us looking at a new beginning. We've seen the end of Jim Crockett Promotions, and tonight we'll be covering the first ever World Championship Wrestling pay-per-view, Starrcade 88, True Grit, 2 T's. John, the naming has not improved after the purchase.
No comment.
You can't blame Turner for that, though, because they were pretty much stuck with that name from the posters and flyers they probably spent thousands of dollars on for the show.
Yeah.
Who puts 2 T's in true?
Oh, God.
For extra emphasis.
We talked about this at the end of the last show, but 1988 was the final year for Jim Crockett Promotions. The company was founded in 1931 and purchased by the Turner Broadcasting System in November of 1988. It had nearly a 60-year run entertaining fans of professional wrestling, and was instrumental in the careers of Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat, and many other wrestlers who would go on to be legends of the wrestling business. Unfortunately, 1988 was the year it couldn't keep going. Injuries, overexpansion, mishandling of the UWF angle, overspending, and luxury purchases, all of these things are thought to have contributed to its downfall in one degree or another. So, in the month before the year's biggest show, the company has changed hands and names. From the ashes of Jim Crockett Promotions rises the phoenix of World Championship Wrestling, and this is the first big show for the new company. Will we see big differences right away, or will things feel pretty much the same since the sale happened so close to the date of the show? To find out, let's go to the ring. Starrcade 88, True Grit, was held at the Norfolk Scope in Norfolk, Virginia on December 26, 1988, in front of 10,000 fans. Now, this is our first Starrcade in December. As we mentioned last time, the WWF created the Survivor Series last year to directly oppose the November Starrcade and did serious damage to Jim Crockett Promotions' first foray into pay-per-view. Last year's Starrcade did only 16,500 pay-per-view buys.
Ouch.
This year, Starrcade did 140,000 pay-per-view buys.
Slight improvement.
Yeah, it's about 8.5 times last year's amount. Now, that's still less than half the 1988 Survivor Series 350,000, but at least we're into 6 digits this time.
Luger, I want you to shut this mouth, pal. Starrcade! Woo! The Nature Bar and the total package. Ha ha! Woo! Bam Bam Bigelow, when you step in the ring for a championship match to where we go, guns out from the very start, you're not going to walk from that ring victorious.
You should have made it a point to get both of them, Daddy. Don't just get one. Don't take one limb. Don't take one heart. Don't take one ear. And don't take one eye. If Sting has to carry me on his back down that aisle, if he has to drag me in a wagon, I'm breathing. You understand what I'm saying? You should have got it done. It's violence for the sake of violence. And now I will turn it around to my violence, my lightning bolt, my fire, my thunder. An eye for an eye.
Some Final Fight music there.
Stage select.
We get an opening video package this year. It goes over the Luger versus Flair, Dusty and Sting versus the Road Warriors, and Bam Bam versus Wyndham matches that we'll be seeing tonight. It was, I thought, pretty nicely produced and pretty cool to see.
Yeah. It's kind of weird the order they put them in, but that's kind of nitpicky.
You want them to build up towards the world title match?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
I guess their logic was we need to start with Flair because he's like, but I could have seen start with Dusty, but maybe I'm sure there's a lot of thought goes into what order goes where. Like,
yeah,
maybe they thought Dusty's was so angry and passionate that it had to go last. I mean, but Flair's is pretty determined as well.
Yeah. I mean, I could also see the logic of just saying we're going to start on the main point of the show.
Sure.
That's like, this is the biggest thing. Yeah, it was just nice to finally see them doing something like that and kind of giving a little bit of that build up for the show to get you charged up for it.
Yeah, you would hope there'd be improvement when you're bought by a TV production company to do your show.
I mean, that was definitely one. You know?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
They're on some sort of medication. Whatever Rick's on, it's not nature derived.
But he's the nature boy.
Maybe it
Doesn't that inherently make it nature derived?
I suppose.
They built up a lot of goodwill with that video package, but that goodwill is almost immediately undone as the actual show opens with the ring announcer's audio feed briefly overlaid over Tony Schiavone welcoming us to the show. Great job, guys. Great job.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like, so every time you do a talk show, there's a guy or girl, whoever it is, they come out and they sort of prep the audience. You tell jokes and you talk about what's happening. It's a really common thing with TV. And that's clearly what the ring announcer's doing.
Yeah.
But just for some reason they decide to put his feed on at the beginning of the show for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, this will be a consistent problem over the course of the night. Tony, in any case, welcomes us to the show and calls Starrcade the Super Bowl of professional wrestling, as we see lots of shots of the crowd. Tony is hosting the show along with hometown boy Magnum TA, but Jim Ross and Bob Caudle will be handling commentary. As we go down to JR and Caudle, there's a very strange sign in the crowd that I just have to point out for a moment. I'm going to apologize in advance if this is actually something that means something horribly offensive that I'm not aware of. I did try to look it up, but I couldn't find anything about this, about its use as a term. The sign says, Luger and Sting are cow hips. Or it might be co-whips, or maybe cow whips, but they missed a W. I'm not really sure. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, in the House of Representatives, there's a whip, but I don't think that's what they mean.
I sent you a picture that explains this.
Yeah, I don't think that the weird book cover with like the smiling moon on it that says cow hips on it is explained much of anything, John. I got to be honest with you. My best guess is maybe cow whip is another word for bullwhip. But
they're bullies.
Oh, okay. So I was gonna say, even in that case, I'm not really sure how it applies, but I guess that could be a weird oblique reference to that. I would kind of get it if they were fighting the Horsemen, maybe, but they're not. So
yeah, it's by no means the worst sign we'll see on a wrestling show.
Yeah. There's plenty worse, but
Cow whip.
But it definitely is one of the most confusing signs that I've seen on a wrestling show. I could not make head or tail of that one. And again, I'm really hoping it doesn't mean something filthy now that I've said it on air.
You know, maybe the guy who had that sign will listen to this and explain it to us.
Yeah, if you were the one holding that sign up at Starrcade 88, get in touch with us and tell us what in the world you meant. JR and Caudle build up that all 5 championships are on the line, and Caudle notes that they've been waiting for more than a year for this night, highlighting the Starrcade schedule change. We get a really, really odd angle with the camera filming JR and Caudle from around the corner of the ring under the bottom rope. Looks very strange.
Maybe the camera just kind of shy. It's like, he's just, a little nervous about meeting them the first time.
Got tired, decided to lay the camera down on the ring and just walk away. Caudle and JR try to continue their conversation as the Varsity Club's music starts playing over them, but it's hard to hear. Sound levels are a real problem on this show, as the ring announcer's mic starts out far too loud and seems to vary wildly in volume. So our first match is Kevin Sullivan and Dr. Death Steve Williams of the Varsity Club versus Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers, the Fantastics, for the NWA United States Tag Team Championship.
So, at the middle of the year, the United States Tag Team Champions, the Midnight Express, and clearly the only one we'll see in this show, are holding those titles, and then they win the World Tag Team titles. I'm still not sure why both exist simultaneously, but they do. They briefly hold them at the same time, but ultimately decide they only want the bigger title. So they relinquish the title in September. That leads to the December 7th Clash show. So it's on the 4th Clash show where the finals of the tournament to crown the new U.S. Tag Team Champions takes place. On that show, it comes down to the Fantastics against the Sheepherders, or it would have if the Sheepherders hadn't signed with the WWF and become a completely different team, a much, much different team, and left the process. So now that they're gone, they decided, well, we'll give it to the guys who they beat to become finalists in this tournament, which is Eddie Gilbert and Ron Simmons. They lose that match, ultimately, to the Fantastics, so they are now the new U.S. Tag Team Champions. 19 days later, we have a title match.
The Fantastics have nice, sparkly blue entrance gear. Interestingly, a small fraction of the men in the crowd clearly boo them and cheer for the Sooners.
Yeah.
Dr. Death fans, I guess. Kevin Sullivan is billed from Singapore, much like the Great Kabuki. I wonder if they were roomies.
I could see them in sort of a the dysfunctional roommates, one's really messy, one's really clean. I could see that. It'd be sick I would watch.
Yeah. You're stealing JR's later reference on the show, by the way.
He's got plenty.
Fulton and Sullivan start us off and trade blows back and forth, with Fulton hitting a Thais press off the second rope. Fulton and Rogers trade off and keep Sullivan and Dr. Death on defense, as we get a shot of Jason Hervey from the Wonder Years in the audience tonight. There's a cool spot as Fulton tries and fails to monkey flip Dr. Death out of the corner, so Rogers comes in and teams up with him to complete the move. Fulton tries and fails again afterwards, which is a little bit weird.
So did he have, no short-term memory?
Apparently so. Dr. Death breaks the Fantastics' momentum with an awesome pumping military press and a massive clothesline. Fulton gets an awkward dropkick and teams up with Rogers for a better double dropkick, but the match evens out. Caudle wonders what magic Sullivan used to get nice guys like Mike Rotunda and Dr. Death to turn into such animals in the ring, and JR says he has very unique communication skills.
Well, those druids, they're really wacky like that.
Yeah. I do love that it's nice guys like Dr. Death, too.
Well, he kills mice. He used to be exterminator.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just made that up, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Just put for John's sake.
Made it sound so plausible, though.
That's why it works.
Dr. Death and Sullivan beat Rogers up and get close to a win, but he keeps fighting and gets a few pin attempts of his own, including a very cool spot where he slides between Dr. Death's legs and brings him down for a pin attempt. He gets to Fulton, but Fulton ends up in trouble himself as someone in the crowd yells, "We want blood!" They are not okay with the new PG rating for the show, I guess.
No, apparently not.
Sorry, guys, TV company. The match swings back and forth, but Sullivan puts his knees up on a Rogers dive and knocks the wind out of him. Dr. Death puts a headlock on, and the camera mostly misses Sullivan providing extra leverage by holding Dr. Death's leg. Rogers breaks free and dives over a charging Sullivan to tag Fulton. All four men fight, and Fulton gets corner punches on Dr. Death and a clothesline, then goes for a sleeper. Dr. Death slips free, so Fulton tries a Thais press, but Dr. Death drops him on the ropes. Rogers, heading back to his corner, clearly sees Fulton down, but goes back anyway as Dr. Death pins Fulton for the 3. Cold, Rogers. Cold.
I really like the story they had going with it, because initially it feels like it's going to be the strong face in peril, the heel controlling it, which we've seen to great effect with the Andersons and the Rock and Roll Express and other times to varying degrees. But they tweak it slightly because they make it a little more back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
On the other aspect is they really make it seem like Dr. Death could almost beat them on his own.
Oh, God, yeah, he looks awesome in this match.
They build him up very strong in this one. So it's differently paced, which is kind of nice. Because on the very first Clash show, there's a match with the Fantastics where they do a variation of that regular style where they just get beat up continuously for like 15 minutes. And like really exaggerate. So it's nice to not see that again.
Yeah.
But yeah, my only issue is the timing slightly off on the Death Press. It clearly hops a little bit, but they're not quite in position. So then Doctor is ready a second later, and he does it again. And it wouldn't be a big deal if they replay everything, because you replay it, you see it again.
Yeah.
But overall, it's a really good match.
I enjoyed it, although I didn't think that the drop kicks were flubbed. I thought they did a decent job. I was like seeing that the first match rather than, only watching headliners do anything off the ropes or running at each other like that. I would like bear hugs to go away, though. It just seems like such a stall, especially if it like near the beginning of the match,
Yeah.
Why?
At least he keeps it relatively short on this one, but yeah.
I thought the Fantastics were pretty good. And Dr. Death pretty much lives up to his name.
Yes.
Occasionally just is like, forget it, I'm just going to keep on going. But I enjoyed the match. And what was the name of the press that you said? Fez?
Yes.
Yeah. It's named after Luthez.
Luthez, yes.
Who's a former world champion of the NWA, and that was a move he would frequently use.
Yeah, that became his sort of big move, because you hop on the guy and you pin him. Steve Austin would later do that, but he would do that same setup and then just punch you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Austin was all about the violence.
And they do mention Luthez being there as well.
I just remember the stunner, or the basically just headbutting.
Yes. Yeah, I thought this was a really, really good opening match. It really set the tone for the show nicely and got everyone excited. A lot of very fast action, very few slow spots to it. There's some really cool moves in the match, many of them by Tommy Rogers.
Yeah.
He was pretty exceptional during this. I loved the sliding pin. I loved the diving tag. Was just amazing to see. Perfect timing. And he had some really good strikes. Not to be outdone, Dr. Death looked incredibly powerful and just scary with some of those big power moves and clotheslines.
Makes us really wonder what would have happened in the last show.
Yeah, exactly.
Had it
It's so cool to see an actual full Dr. Death performance, and he's really good.
Yeah.
Not that Fulton or Sullivan were slouches by any means, of course. Everybody worked really hard, and, well, there were some awkward moments, I agree, on that last ending spot especially. The teams worked well together, and moves had a really real feeling of impact. I appreciated, like you were saying, Al, the real back and forth feel of the match. It felt different than a normal tag match.
Right.
There was kind of a face in peril section, but it wasn't as pronounced or obvious.
Right.
And Rogers got a lot of offense still when he was in trouble. There really didn't ever feel like a point where one side was just totally in control and the other side was just trying to survive. The match also, I appreciate, didn't linger very long on any one concept. They kind of kept changing things up and modifying how the match was working.
Sure.
So, yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one. It was definitely in contention for my match of the night.
No, I will say it's definitely, looking back through the previous shows, it's definitely an improvement on previous opening matches, mostly the first Starrcade.
Yeah, there's definitely more of a feel of just let's get everybody energized in this one.
Still several years away from cruiserweight being a thing, so
yeah,
we'll have to make do until then.
Yeah.
Everything is a little bit faster paced. There's not much mulling around, and they're not doing the sizing each other up, because they just get into it.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own established style, and they're not afraid to allow each person to have a couple highlights.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. They kind of just charge right into the battle on this one.
You don't like stopping the match every move to do a knee wiggle or something like that?
We will never forget the knee wiggle.
The title reign for Sullivan and Williams is not very long. The actual titles themselves don't stay around. They actually vacated for quite a while in May, a reason they could not find clear evidence on. They're having matches and then suddenly they just vacate the titles. They do reappear again before the end of the year, but it's like a weird stretch in the middle where they just abandon these titles and then bring them back. Like it didn't really matter.
Maybe somebody ran headlong into Dr. Death's crotch again. We go back to the announcers, and Tony and Magnum discuss the upcoming Midnights versus Midnights match, and both think that Cornette's team has the edge. They also take some time to build up the Russian Assassins versus Ivan Koloff and the Junkyard Dog, and they agree that it's likely that Junkyard Dog has a big chance of putting Paul Jones out of wrestling. On to the TV title match, and Tony thinks that nobody can beat Mike Rotunda in 20 minutes, but Magnum thinks that Rick Steiner's perhaps the best wrestler at Starrcade, and he's got a real shot of taking the title. They go down to JR and Caudle disagrees with Tony and Magnum and thinks the original Midnight Express will come out ahead. So our next match is the Midnight Express, Beautiful Bobby Eaton and Sweet Stan Lane, with Jim Cornette, versus the Midnight Express, Loverboy Dennis Condrey and Ravishing Randy Rose, with Paul E. Dangerously. That's an awesome name.
Mm-hmm.
Randy Rose?
No. Although, I do like... Do we only have one R adjective that can be used?
Right.
He's Ravishing Randy Rose. We had Ravishing Rick Rude. Come up with something different.
I was hoping you would say Rick Rude when you said the first two. You started making the sound. Sadly, no.
Rambunctious Randy Rose.
That actually wouldn't be the worst thing.
Resilient?
Rockin' Randy Rose.
I need another one.
Rambunctious? Did you already say that?
I think you did.
Yeah, I did.
John loses. No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Rectangular?
I don't think he's particularly rectangular.
No. I couldn't think of another R word.
Risky.
Repetitive Randy Rose. Oh, I'm sorry, Randy.
Redundant Randy Rose.
Oh, now we're just getting mean to the guy.
It's also worth noting that he has a 3R thing going on.
True.
Dennis Condrey only is he's Dennis Condrey. He should be Kenneth Connery or, Dennis Dondry or something. Devious.
Devious Dennis would be a good name, actually.
I'm looking to find out if triliteration's a word. It's not.
The Midnight Express, the Eaton Lane version, that is, lose their tag titles, and then shortly after that, Paulie Dangerous comes back with faces from their past. He brings the original team back, and they determine they got to get rid of the other one. There's a lot of great promos because you have Cornette and you've got Paul Heyman / Paul Dangerously, but they don't really go in depth about why we need to only have one and why it has to be the old ones versus the new ones. They clearly want people to cheer the Midnight Express. They were getting cheered anyways, they might as well lean into it. So the best way to do it is to represent, I guess, the bad version of them and give them someone devious to go after and be, because in this case they're targeted, whereas like the Road Warriors they target them, or with the Rock and Roll Express they target them. This time they're just on the show, just being guys and then attacked by the bad guys. So sort of a story turn for them. But yeah, I kept waiting for like a bigger thing, but I couldn't find anything about it.
Both teams come out to the same music. It just plays straight through both entrances, which I thought was actually kind of a nice touch. Eaton and Lane have pretty cool-looking black jackets this year, while Condrey and Rose wear black and pink vests.
Big fans of Bret Hart, I guess.
I don't get the wardrobe choices.
I like the black jackets. I thought that was pretty good.
I'm talking later.
Oh, okay. They brawl quickly, and Eaton and Lane drive Condrey and Rose away. Cornette challenges Dangerously, and Caudle says that Cornette, in a shiny red suit, is dressed up like a Christmas tree. Cornette says he'll give America a Christmas present by kicking Dangerously's butt, but Condrey and Rose hold Dangerously back. I also have to note here, I don't remember if we mentioned this last year or not, but Stan Lane totally looks like a smaller Lex Luger.
He does, yes.
Like, you could do a brothers gimmick with them, and I would totally buy it.
I can see that.
Yeah.
It's the hair.
got to be a singles match I can find between the two of them.
There's got to be.
I will track one down for
Yeah.
my viewing sake.
Those two, like, on a tag team would be awesome, too.
Yeah.
Just like, which one's in the ring? Just have to look at the size.
Yeah. Actually, given the kind of weird stuff we have coming up when they start mixing teams up randomly, that would be a perfect opportunity to do that.
Yeah, Battle Bowl or something, yeah.
But I don't think they do.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I hope I'm wrong.
Eaton and Lane beat up Rose and Condrey, as JR notes that Cornette looks like he made his pants out of Christmas gift wrap. Lane drives Condrey out of the ring with strikes, and Cornette nails Condrey with the tennis racket when the ref Teddy Long isn't looking, leading dangerously to protest and demand a DQ, even ringing the bell himself. It doesn't work. Lane keeps the advantage and hits an inverted atomic drop, as JR calls it the national hold of the American Chiropractors Association. Rose comes in, but Lane and Eaton keep solid control, and Cornette lands another racket shot, prompting more yelling and bell ringing from Dangerously. JR says this is like smoking a cigarette in an ammunition dump. Something bad's going to happen at any time. Eaton and Lane beat up Rose, as JR momentarily mixes up Bobby Eaton and Bobby Fulton, kind of understandable. Condrey comes in, and the match kicks into a higher gear as Condrey goes after Eaton with vicious punches. Eaton misses a jumping charge into the corner and gets tied up in the ropes. Condrey takes advantage with some nasty knee strikes, and the tide turns. Condrey and Rose trade off, smashing Eaton with heavy strikes, and Dangerously gets in a cheap shot, prompting Cornette to chase him around the ring and hurl a chair at him. JR notes that it's a little uncomfortable to work while chairs are whizzing by your head, which Caudle agrees. Eaton repeatedly fights for his corner, but Condrey and Rose keep him away. Condrey picks Eaton up, tags Rose, and slams Eaton down, launching Rose off the turnbuckle for what might be the winning splash, but Eaton dodges. Stumbling to his corner, he tags Lane. Lane lands kicks on Condrey and Rose and hits a double noggin knocker, then gets more kicks to Rose and a big enziguri to take him down for a pin. Eaton stops Condrey from breaking up the pin, and Eaton, Condrey, and Long spill out of the ring. Dangerously nails Lane with his giant 80s cell phone and pulls Rose on top before Cornette chases him away. Long wakes up and counts 1, 2, then spots the cell phone. Rose denies any nefariousness as Long questions him, but Lane and Eaton hit the double goozle for the 3. That is actually the move's name.
Yes.
Awesome.
We unfortunately get a clear shot of Condrey clearly just waiting for his moment to charge in, and lo and behold he does, moments too late to stop the pin. Condrey kicks Lane and uses Cornette's racket to beat up Lane, Eaton, and Cornette. Dangerously spits on Cornette, though it actually sounds a little bit more like he sneezed, honestly. Eaton recovers and gets the racket and uses it to drive off the original Midnight Express.
I liked it a lot. My only issue was the structure that before, how they sort of messing with the tag structure, was off, but not quite in the same way in this one. Because there's a certain rhythm you get to these matches, and for some reason it felt off to me. It felt like the faces being really strong and dominating the match felt longer than it normally is.
Mm-hmm.
Like you want to have a flurry and then something happens to take over, but it felt like they slightly extended that longer. But I thought those were pretty good. It's the first time seeing Randy Rose.
Yeah.
Because he was off the Midnight Express before they even appeared at, I want to say, is it 85 they first appeared?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Before in that tag match with Jimmy Valiant. He's on the show, but I'll have to mention him somehow. Bob demands it.
I'm perfectly fine just leaving him in the past. The rearview mirror.
He can't exist in the ether. He's got to be with us at all times.
No.
But no, the Midnight Express at one point was a 3 to 4 man group. It kind of varied within different territories. But then when they came to Crockett Promotions, at that point it was Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton. And then, as discussed in the previous show, Dennis Condrey just sort of bails randomly and they replace him with Stan Lane, which is generally seen as an improvement. They're they're not obviously by no means the original Midnight Express. They're like the third iteration of it at this point. They seem like the strongest one, the one people most remember in general. But it was a good match. It's just the funny timing of him clearly having time to run in there and stop the pinfall, but choosing no, I want to hit him afterwards instead.
Yeah.
It's a little funny to me.
Yeah, that last kick, there was some hesitation. It's like, yeah, maybe I should make it look like I'm going to stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I should get up. I don't know if it was the camera angles or what, but there was some just funny shots throughout this whole thing. I enjoyed Cornette prancing about the whole match.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how taunting that was. I just thought he was just having a good time. The racket still seems like a funny weapon to have, but hey, whatever. My favorite, and again, I get their names because, they're both Midnight Express. Which one looks like a dangerous lumberjack?
Condrey, probably. He's kind of the beefier looking one.
Yes.
on the originals team.
There's a spot in the match that I like the most is he's clearly talking to like one of his opponents off screen, but he just like slaps himself in the chest and he just like pulls on the ropes and everything, just like taunting him. But it looks like he's just having a seizure or it's just talking to nothing. I feel bad for Jim. He always gets it handed to him, no matter what happens.
Does.
I mean,
even when he's the good guy, he's still getting beat up in some way after the match. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is still by far the best ending for these.
Yeah.
For him, I would say.
Yeah, true. He didn't actually like shatter his knee in a million pieces this time, so there's that.
But yeah, definitely change the wardrobe for everyone.
Yeah, this felt a bit slower than the first match starting out. I think you were saying, Al, but once it got going, it did get really good. I thought it feels to me like a switch gets flipped midway through the match, and suddenly they really, really go at it. Particularly Condrey and Eaton. Lane and Eaton are excellent together, and they both have some great moves. I loved Eaton's neckbreaker and elbow drop, and Lane has some amazing, like crisp martial arts kicks that make him stand out.
Yeah, so they.
Condrey and Rose felt slower and more methodical, but not in a bad way. It felt like they had a more considered approach once they got in control, and Condrey felt especially brutal when taking former partner Bobby Eaton apart. Kind of Anderson-esque, but a little more strikes-focused.
I can see that.
The match had a clearer division of control than the first match. There's a stronger feeling of, like you were saying, the solid face control starting out and solid heel control later on, rather than the constant back and forth the first match had.
Right.
It does make the matches feel different, which is nice, but I like the first match's style a little better. Still, this was an energetic match that felt hard fought, and Cornette and Dangerously's antics were really great too. They did just enough to add to the match, but not overpower it. I liked the ending. It was neat to see the ref figure out what happened while his back was turned for once, and the double goozle, while oddly named, looked impactful. It is still, like you guys were saying, a little hurt by Condrey just kind of sitting there waiting for his moment. So, yeah, come on, Dennis.
I would note one thing rarely in defense of the heels. So, as you noted, Dangerously hits the good guy with the phone and then helps the other guy get the pin. So when the ref comes in, starts protesting to Condrey, he's simply saying, hey, I didn't use a cell phone at all, which is 100% true.
Overall, really good match, and it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. The reason why they end with, while as a clear victor, there's still clearly a lot going on, is because they're building to the very next show, which is Chi-Town Rumble. The match they have booked for that show between the two Midnights is expanded. It is now a 6-man tag team match, with basically the managers being involved.
Oh, okay.
And the losing team is forced to leave their promotion entirely.
Oh.
Let's see, you guys can't work together, so one of you guys got to go. There's only one problem with that. Before this show, and this is February, mind you, Des Condrey actually just leaves. Yeah.
Decided to do it again.
It's less than a month before the show. He just like, yeah, I know I'm going to lose a loser leaves WCW match, but I'm going to leave early because I'm.
It's like, I'll leave on my schedule.
Apparently, yeah.
Undefeated.
So what happens is they sub out a wrestler who later known as Jack Victory, who essentially is the generic wrestler they have who they can slap a mask on and call him whatever they want. After you look at the history of Clash, he plays like 7 different people as random masked wrestlers. They go, here, put a mask on. You're the new 5th or 6th member of the Midnight Express for this one match where you'll be pinned and lose.
Well, I guess at least he gets to participate in one of the greatest teams of all time. So
yeah,
good for him.
There's some back and forth with management with a bunch of wrestlers that we'll see going forward, with the new bosses and new head over that. As such, the New Men Express also leave, but it's a very brief tenure. They leave and they come back far before the next Starrcade. So there's a loser leaves WCW match. One guy leaves beforehand. On the team he's going to lose anyways. And then people that win also briefly leave, but they come back. It's all kind of a mess.
Yeah. We go back to the announce team, and JR builds up the level of effort that both teams gave, and that they haven't seen the last of this situation, as you've just made clear.
Yes.
Caudle discusses the upcoming Russian Assassins versus Ivan Koloff and Junkyard Dog match, and he predicts that the Russians will win. We go backstage to Magnum TA and the Varsity Club, as the Varsity Club are celebrating their big U.S. Tag Title win.
I think I understand that Magnum TA is standing by with the new United States champions. Let's go to him now in the locker room.
Guys are really celebrating here. You know, Steve Dr. Williams, I got to say, I don't like the company you're keeping, but I've got to say, honestly, I feel you made the difference. You made the difference in them winning this tag team championship.
Well, boss man, we've never met eye to eye on anything we've done in the years. But let me say one thing. Mike, Kevin, the Varsity Club will always be at the top. Oklahoma, Syracuse, suspensions, probations, it don't matter. We will always stand ahead.
You know, Magnum, you're an intellectual. You're right. We traded a moron. Michael and I traded a moron in on a genius. You see, we are the start of the franchise tonight. So far, we're 1 for 1. I told you we win, and Michael is going to take that Rick Steiner and Alex, and we're going to run them out of the wrestling business. Right, Michael?
Look, Kevin. Steiner might as well forget about it right now, because I'm going to beat you like the stupid dog that you are, Steiner. Just like a stupid dog. You know how you kick him? I'm going to do that to you and show the whole world who the better wrestler is, and that's me.
Well, the Varsity Club certainly ain't lacking for confidence. Let's go back ringside for more action.
A promo that only Michael Vick would love.
Oh, God. For me, this was short but effective once the sound starts up, at least. Good production values, this show.
Oh, yeah.
I thought Dr. Death did a much better job this year in this, short dose. He sounds really threatening, dangerous, and driven. Admittedly, it's probably easier to cut a decent promo when you haven't just been hit in the crotch.
Yeah, that definitely helped me.
Yeah. Rotunda was fine. It was a little weird how little everyone had to say here, but it worked. And Sullivan was actually surprisingly sedate during his promo as far as Sullivan goes, though admittedly I've only really seen his later Dungeon of Doom stuff where he's completely bonkers, so it's not the best comparison. His repeated miming of kicking a dog in the background was probably the best part of this, though. He just takes such inordinate joy in it.
Well, I mean, he's going to be a little more calm. I mean, he's from Singapore, so he's into all the Eastern meditation.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Don't worry, he's still a druid, just to be clear.
But yeah, it definitely gets across that these guys are evil.
Clearly, the lesson is people that have college degrees are the worst people in the world.
Yeah. I know that's how we advertise the college I work at, definitely is, get a degree, you'll become a horrible person.
Yeah. But you'll win the U.S. Tag Team titles.
Yeah, there you go.
I can just find them.
I know why they don't mic them directly.
Yeah, Dr. Death is loud. We go back from the interview to our next match, which is the Russian Assassins number 1 and number 2 with Paul Jones versus Junkyard Dog and Ivan Koloff.
The last show was the first one we had without Paul Jones on it in any way, which was weird.
True, yeah.
So he had lost his soulmate, so they gave him a different feud with a different sort of country guy. If Clay was not enough to make it on the Starrcade, so he figured, I gotta try something different. So during this time, Nikita Koloff finally gets Ivan Koloff to sort of turn to his way of thinking, which is, U.S. isn't all bad, you can play fair, you're really, really good, let's all work together and we'll be good people now. Paul Jones' response to that is to bring in 2 masked wrestlers known as the Russian Assassins. And yes, one of them is Jack Victory, the guy that is the
of course,
the replacement for Dennis Condrey. You'll see later.
Great.
It's Jack Rumble. Yeah. So that's his first debut on these shows.
It kind of makes me sad that neither of them, presumably, is one of the assassins from the first Starrcade.
Does it?
No.
Okay, just checking. But yeah, so he brings in Russian assassins and targets the now technically the term Russian turncoat does still apply. They just
I guess so,
yeah, because they were Russian turned against it. So yeah, it's the good version of the Russian turncoat. Take note of that, Steven Seagal. The only problem we have is that a short period of time before this show, Nikita Koloff takes personal time because his wife is sick, and he actually has gone with the motion for quite a while.
Yeah.
So on the December 7th Clash show, they announced his replacement, which is the Junkyard Dog.
Yeah.
Bit of a downgrade.
Yeah, I believe she does end up passing during this period, doesn't she?
In mid '89, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously a really sad experience for many reasons, but
sure.
Yeah, it's definitely sad to not see Nikita. We were seeing him, I think, really, really come into his own last year.
Absolutely.
And it's a totally understandable reason to interrupt your career.
Absolutely.
Sympathies on that situation, definitely.
Of course.
Junkyard Dog has some very 80s music. That's the only way I can describe it. Ivan Koloff has a chain. The Russian assassins have Paul Jones, I guess, and masks. Confusingly, Paul Jones is called Number 1 Paul Jones, but we also have Russian Assassin Number 1 and Number 2. The Russian assassin's weight is not given, and Ivan Koloff gets the kilos instead of pounds thing. It's kind of weird that they bothered giving the weight for him and not for them, but whatever. JR steals your earlier joke, Al, and calls Junkyard Dog and Koloff Felix and Oscar, wrestling's odd couple. If the assassins lose this match, they must unmask, and Paul Jones must retire. Someone in the crowd aggressively yells that Paul Jones is going down and starts chanting USA. Koloff is on the face team too, just saying.
Oh, I just mentioned this, but as you mentioned, there's the stipulation if they lose. There is no other stipulation to it. So basically, if the Russian assassins win, they gain nothing. Other than the ability to keep their mask and to keep their manager.
Yeah, that is a little odd. We also see a great dot matrix printer sign in the crowd calling for the assassins to unmask, although assassins is misspelled.
Yeah.
Still, that was a real blast from the past, dot matrix. Mm-hmm. Gosh.
Continuous paper, baby.
JYD beats up assassin number 1 and does his crawling headbutt spot. Jones seems to be late for a spot where he's supposed to put number 1's foot on the ropes for a pin, so number 1 just kind of does it himself. Number 2 doesn't fare any better and gets punched out of the ring over the ropes. Jones puts number 2's foot under the ropes on a pin with the proper timing this time. Koloff in, and he beats up number 2 and gets choked takedown, like the one you liked Nikita doing last year, John.
Yes. It's very fluid.
Yes.
It's very aggressive.
Caldo calls Ivan the most respected Russian athlete in wrestling. Sorry, Nikita.
Ouch, yeah.
Ivan does hit a pretty nice diving Russian sickle clothesline, so I guess he does deserve some respect. Koloff continues dominating when number 1 comes back in and tags JYD, but JYD misses a headbutt, and Caldo notes that while he brags about having the hardest head in wrestling, it clearly isn't as hard as the ring. The Assassins team goes to beat up JYD, but number 1 accidentally nails number 2 with a double axe handle. The ref is busy with Koloff and misses JYD's pin attempt. Caldo notes that Paul Jones said that his men have to stay on top of these guys or he won't be around in '89. JR deadpans, "Well, that would certainly break my heart. That'd put a damper on my new year."
I don't think he was being very sincere.
No, man.
Probably not.
No. Tag to number 2, and number 1 flings him at JYD in the corner, the Russian missile, but JYD dodges and number 2 hits the corner hard. Everybody gets in, and Koloff and JYD beat up the assassins and Paul Jones, as I lose track of which assassin is which. Koloff fights one next to the ropes as JYD whips another into the ropes. The assassin leapfrogs JYD and runs into Koloff, knocking the other assassin out of the ring. JYD hits an atomic drop on the assassin in the ring, and Koloff hits a standing sickle, but Jones puts something in the other assassin's mask. The assassin gets in the ring and headbutts Koloff, and that gets the 3, as Long loses track of which assassin is legal.
Yeah, it's definitely a drop in quality.
What are you talking about? I like JYD.
Yeah?
I don't hate JYD. I just think the match itself wasn't as good as the last two. Kind of reminded me, in not the best way, of that opening match we had on Starrcade with Rufus R. Freight Train Jones.
Yes.
Who I just wanted to actually say his full silly name one more time. Haven't said it in a while. And Bugs McGraw, the guy wearing like the boots that look like socks and all them.
Yeah.
It might be a lot of that because that was the 2 assassins with the mask. I thought it was pretty impossible to tell which one was which. You did better than I did, so that's good for you, I guess.
JR did better than you did.
There you go.
I followed JR.
Fair enough.
I made no attempt to keep track of them.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's easier when one of them is really fat and one of them's really muscular.
Yeah, it was much easier with the 2 assassins on the first show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it just didn't do a whole lot for me. It wasn't definitely not the worst match we've seen on this series, which was also a tag match. But following the 2 matches, it was a real drop off in quality. It also didn't help that we're 3 matches in, and first 3 matches are all tag matches.
Yeah.
So you can't help but feel comparisons. I feel like it's kind of an opportunity to not call the Russian missile, just call it the ICBM. But yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Speaking of changing of names, I really think that they should be called Ruskadors.
Oh, okay.
Not bad.
Because I think that would be a better name for them than the Russian assassins.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely shorter to say.
And I like the very beginning spot when JYD comes in, takes off the chain, and then jumps into the ring, and the assassins just flee.
Yeah.
I thought that was good. I did not expect the numerous amount of headbutts.
It's kind of the thing.
Like WWJYD, it's headbutt. I enjoyed the match, but I noticed that Ivan seemed like he was moving in slow motion or was just scripted. It didn't seem like his heart was in it, and I didn't know any of the other backstory behind that, but the spot where they have the 2 assassins and one leapfrogs and pushes them, he's just kind of like I'm moving at like a third or a fourth the speed he normally does. And he didn't do any like really massive, over the head slams or anything. I thought actually JYD did a little bit more work in the match, but yeah, I didn't think Ivan's heart was in it that much.
Yeah, you wonder if maybe there was a little bit of, I wanted to do this match with Nikita going on, possibly.
Potentially.
I guess how I'd describe it is not as bad as I'd feared.
Oh.
I don't know. I was expecting that this would be more like Assassin Number 1 and Buzz Tyler versus the Zambui Express.
Yeah.
When it's just like against 2 people that I have no idea who they are, the Russian assassins, and like my experience with the last assassin team was not good, so but this was just kind of a basic match, no real screw ups. The moves looked fine. The only really good spots, in contrast to you, John, I actually thought the only really good spots belonged to Ivan Koloff. So I don't know, I read it opposite, I guess. I really liked his nice diving clothesline in particular. JYD's crawling headbutts kind of confused me. It's a fun little spot, but I don't get how that's supposed to actually hurt.
It's intimidation,
I guess. And the Russian assassins just kind of feel like they're there. They're capable enough, but they're not very interesting, and they don't really have a lot going on.
Well, because they don't talk.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
I do respect that number 2 really threw himself at the corner on the missed Russian missile spot, though. He was willing to do what he had to for that spot, and it looked like it hurt. Kind of a dull match to me, but it was short, and it did keep moving. The ending is a little weird. Long can clearly see that Koloff was pinning an assassin before the other one headbutted him. So how did Long think that this was working out? Did he think, oh, Ivan's stupid, he was definitely pinning the wrong one? It's like...
Yeah.
I'd get the twin magic spot if the ref didn't see the switch at all, but Long is clearly watching as they switch out, too, so...
Yeah, that is one thing I will say. They do look enough alike that they kind of swap it out.
They just don't have the best timing for it or something. It's like it needs to happen when Long is clearly not looking and there's no there's nothing that would lead him to believe that there was a switch.
Well, I mean, who's supposed to distract the referee? The manager? Oh,
Yeah.
that is what we do.
He's busy tucking something into the mask.
Does he look like some sort of like Italian racing coach or something?
Yeah.
I'm not
see
trying
that.
to be whatever, but like the mustache.
His mustache is Mario-esque for sure.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
It's a me, Paul Jones.
It's definitely better than his military getup.
Yes, I appreciated the change away from that.
Well, his Dracula cape is pretty cool.
Yes, that I would love him to go back to.
Yeah. So, the story moving forward is that Paul Jones leaves the promotion during 1989, as does Ivan Koloff. You want to guess which month he leaves in?
January?
Yes.
Yes! The streak continues.
Yes. The Russian assassins hang around just not as Russian assassins, because they're just two guys you can take in any mask or outfit.
Yeah.
But don't worry, JYD is just going to stick around for the next couple of years, so you have that to look forward to.
Okay. We don't get a JYD promo on this one, but I do actually really like his promos, I do have to say. He has a good, just like, really exuberant kind of style.
He had a pretty good one on the Clash show we watched prep for this.
We go back to the announcers, and JR and Caudle discuss the matches so far. Caudle says, "We've seen 3 great matches." I agree on 2.
I'll give you 2.
You know, usually by this point we have one of those rope or flail or chain or something, you know, some sort of special match for the third slot.
That's true. Pacing of this placement is really weird because they have ultimately 3 singles matches and 4 tag matches, but put 3 tag matches in a row. It's just bizarre to me. Because we got that. That's what it felt like with the first show. There's a lot of tag matches.
Yeah. Just another way that this kind of returns to the first show again, I guess. Our next match is Rick Steiner versus Mike Rotunda with Games Master Kevin Sullivan for Rotunda's NWA World Television Championship.
In January of '88, then Florida Heavyweight Champion Mike Rotunda wins the TV title off of Takeda. He decides he's going to keep both titles, so he gifts the Florida Heavyweight title to Rick Steiner, who then proceeds to wrestle with and defend it for quite a long time. So it kind of makes his own, at least. As it becomes clear that Rick Steiner is very popular, he's sort of growing that way, and he sort of finds his comic character, they realize they have to break up the group and turn them against him. So they have Mike Rotunda basically ask for his title back. He wants to be dual champion again. Rick Steiner says no, so they kick him out of the group, and in turn they point out to the board of directors, who apparently were not paying attention to this, how the title was literally just given to Rick Steiner. And they go, oh yeah, that's true. We'll take the title off of him now.
In the board of directors' defense, they were probably fairly occupied with company finances at the time, so...
Yeah, their accountants kept calling and telling him to have to do something. But yeah, so he loses the title that he didn't actually win, but had treated like he had won all this time. So it says, hey, I'm down a title, might as well take Mike Rotunda's title.
Okay.
But he defended it successfully, right?
Correct. But he didn't initially win it. So that's the excuse they use for getting off of him.
Oh.
Steiner's music is the same as the Varsity Club music. And the Varsity Club music is neither of the fight songs for University of Michigan or Syracuse University, nor is it the Oklahoma Sooners fight song. Yeah, the only thing I could think was maybe it's the song for Sullivan's own Miskatonic University.
Yeah. I think if you hear that song, it drives you insane. So then they're allowed to play that.
Okay. Yeah, true. JR says something that we can barely hear about talking to Alex before the match, but not being able to hear what he had to say. Ironic. Caudle doesn't understand what's going on with Steiner, and JR notes that people are barking for Steiner. A cage is lowered. Sullivan will be in the cage for this match. Sullivan doesn't like the idea, but Teddy Long forces him to get in. Sullivan does look ominous in his hooded robe as he's raised into the air. Breaking the mood, we get another dot matrix sign of an adorable cartoon dog labeled Rick Steiner, the new TV champion. Someone was busy with their printer. The fans chant, "Syracuse sucks." Rotunda and Steiner start with a shoving match that quickly comes to trading blows, and Steiner wins that as Rotunda rolls out to calm down. Steiner gets to show off his power early on, even using one arm to hurl Rotunda across the ring when Rotunda grabs a wrist lock, which looked really cool. JR says hello to Steiner's mom for him. After a massive clothesline, Rotunda flees outside again and Steiner talks to his hand puppet, Alex. Back in, they move to mat wrestling and Steiner wins that contest with a smooth hammerlock, then bites Rotunda on the butt. He and the crowd deny the biting when ref Teddy Long asks.
Funny spot, but it's weird the ref stops to ask the crowd what happened.
Yeah, it's kind of Teddy Long's thing over this show. He occasionally will ask the crowd on the spot, and it is funny that they defend Steiner on this, I thought.
Shame he didn't ask them if they had shoved a piece of metal into their mask earlier.
Yeah.
Might have changed that story completely.
Steiner grabs side headlocks in between rapid sequences of power moves and mat wrestling. There's a very smooth transition from a Steiner headlock takedown to a Rotunda leg scissor hold in particular. Rotunda is clearly bothered by the crowd's barking and chants as Steiner dances to it. JR says that the crowd should have brought dog biscuits and collars. Rotunda gets fed up and walks out, threatening to leave. He eventually comes back, and the crowd rewards him by chanting "Syracuse sucks." JR respectfully disagrees about Syracuse. Steiner gets flung through the ropes, and JR says that he landed on his head. JR also notes that was probably the safest place for Steiner to land. Rotunda wears Steiner down and grabs a headlock, using the ropes for leverage. The fans inform Teddy Long, and he makes Rotunda break. Steiner wins a slugfest, but gets taken back down into the headlock again. Steiner fights free, but Rotunda hits a great diving clothesline to take him down. But Steiner grabs the ropes to dodge a dropkick. Steiner hits one of the biggest clotheslines I have ever seen, as JR notes that people in the maritime provinces and sailors out at sea could have heard that one. Dr. Death comes down to the ring as Steiner hits a huge power slam for 2. Steiner hits a belly-to-belly suplex and Long counts 1, but Dr. Death rings the bell early. Steiner, being an idiot, thinks a 1 count was enough to win him the match. Teddy Long thinks that the time limit expired and goes to raise Rotunda's hand, but ref Tommy Young comes down and clues Teddy Long in on what happened. The cage lowers, and Kevin Sullivan comes over to try to argue his side, but Tommy Young lectures him, and Teddy Long restarts the match. Rotunda hits Steiner, but Steiner rams him into Sullivan and pins him, and gets the 3, from both refs. The crowd erupts in one of the loudest cheers we've yet heard on this or any other show, as Steiner runs laps around the ring elated. With a tremendous grin on his face, he grabs the belt and waves it above his head as he sprints towards backstage.
I really like most of the match. I like that it builds up Rick Steiner while also not doing too much to make Rotunda. It becomes clear, kind of like with the first match, that the power aspect is just too hard to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, there's this really solid technical side to Rick Steiner here, as we see a lot later. He's a very good technical wrestler, and he can do sort of all of that. Rotunda does really well, sort of playing his heelish character, doing the whole "I'm going to walk out here" thing, all that. My only real issue is the way they handle the ending. I feel like it must have been a match where they tried the tricking him thing before ringing the bell.
Maybe.
So they don't make that clear watching this. Like with the Ron Garvin spot in the last show. They made a point of when Ric Flair kicks out of the sunset flip, they say, well, that's how he won the title last time.
Yeah.
If that has more context to it, it would help. Maybe, but I don't have it. That said, obviously, the crowd seems to have no problem with any of that. And I do like seeing them celebrate and having everything turned on them. I just wish it's one of the things where it doesn't ruin the match. It's an unnecessary level for me that they could, if they'd done without it, it would have been just fine too. I still liked it a lot, though.
This is the first time I've seen Mike Rotunda, and despite the unfortunate naming, I thought that he is a decent wrestler, but I think he's a very good arrogant heel throughout.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays it, into his mannerisms and everything. He does bad things to Steiner, but even how he talks to the ref just seems like, why are we even having this problem?
Yeah.
I like the ending just because it's different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Like, usually you have these situations where one ref is knocked out and another one comes in, or, there seems like there was a finality and consensus when Steiner makes that quick lunge and takes him out. They're both quick to respond, and I didn't know about the other belt situation, but they should have given him both titles. Because he pinned him twice, but that didn't happen. But the crowd is clearly on Steiner's side. I think a large part of that is due to Mike Rotunda's performance.
Yeah. Yeah, the crowd was seriously into this one. And it's impossible not to feel good for Steiner with his celebration at the end there. Both of these guys were great athletes who could put on a good show with both mat wrestling and convincing power moves, like you were saying, Al.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it was half amateur wrestling and half the usual pro style, and that gave it a very different feel than the other matches that we've seen tonight. Both were really smooth and made good use of their characters to get the crowd incredibly hyped up. Steiner in particular was clearly having a great time, and that made the match easy to enjoy. It did get a little repetitive at points with a lot of reliance on headlocks as transition moves. I would have appreciated a little more variety there, but the rest of what they were doing was exceptional. There's a great mix of different tactics from both, excellent emotion in the match and inspiration in the crowd, and a very, very fun storyline. I really liked Rotunda playing up just how much the crowd was bothering him without really ever slowing the match down.
Yeah, I can see that.
And Steiner playing along with the crowd and just having fun with it. I was worried about the ending, but I actually think that it worked out all right. I think what made it work to me is when I realized it's Steiner beating the whole varsity club.
Mm.
The way that they did that ending takes it from being just Steiner beating Rotunda to Steiner overcoming Kevin Sullivan and his plans as well. And that, I think, is important because Sullivan's the guy that's saying, Steiner, what an idiot. Steiner, we traded in him for a better guy. And he overcomes the actions of all three of them rather than just Rotunda.
He does fall for the trick at first, though.
Yeah.
So he fully disproved Sullivan's point.
True, yeah. But I mean, he overcomes despite the best efforts of Kevin Sullivan and his emissary, Dr. Death. I think it works as giving him a victory over the whole club rather than giving him a victory over just one part of it. It makes sense with that Steiner has this super elated response because it feels like he got one over on everybody.
Sure.
And Steiner felt like he won twice.
Yes.
Almost 3 times.
I have 2 notes. One, it's getting to the reduction issues. We get to see Rick Steiner thrown out of the ring, but we don't actually see his landing.
True. Yeah.
But when they say it is really impactful. So I guess we could take his word for how he landed and how much it hurt him.
Yeah.
There was that Dr. Steve Williams comes out, rings the bell, and just walks away, and doesn't seem to try to come back when things get turned around.
Yeah. True.
It is fairly quick, but it would be nice to cut to him at the entryway, shaking his fist, oh, I'll get you next time. Because it feels like he's oh, rung the bell, time to go.
Yeah, I guess the idea is he's so confident that it's going to work, but yeah, it is a little odd.
Like I said, it's not a real big deal because that whole sequence is fairly quick at the end. Not like they have another match after that,
right?
Play time, but it's just kind of funny that he never show him trying to get back.
Yeah, true.
The TV title stays fairly competitive. It's traded around a few times. Rick Steiner's reign isn't too long, unfortunately. And by the end of the year, ends up in the hands of someone we will see on the next show for the very first time, the Great Muta.
Oh, cool. We go back to the announcers, and Tony and Magnum talk about the match. Tony notes that champs so far are 0 for 2 at Starrcade. Both are very happy for Steiner. Magnum points out that no one was expecting the title changes so far because matches are generally in the champion's favor, but anything can happen at Starrcade. We go to our next match, which is Bam Bam Bigelow with Sir Oliver Humperdinck.
Pause for laughter.
Yeah. Versus Barry Windham with J.J. Dillon for Windham's NWA United States Heavyweight Championship.
The overall story is that Barry Windham is a good guy starting out the year. Him and Luger team up together. They defeat the Horsemen a couple times. But then, right at the peak period where, after their big victory, he then turns on Luger and joins the Horsemen.
Mm.
And not too long after that, he wins the U.S. title, thus putting him in that spot where he's the mid-card, younger support guy in the group, which literally Luger was last show.
Yeah.
far as direct feud between the two of them, there's actually really not much as far as Bam Bam and Wyndham. They really just build up Bam Bigelow as coming into the area and challenge for the title. So in a way, it's like what they did with Superstar Billy Graham, where they just go, hey, Superstar Billy Graham's going to be at Starrcade. He's getting the U.S. title match.
Just this big, noteworthy outsider.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Though at least with Graham, they make a point of he had previously held the title, and he had big names. Like, well, let's just give him a title match. Whereas Bam Bam, they're doing it because he came from WWF, and that's why he's getting a title match.
Bam Bam Bigelow comes out in his awesome black bodysuit with flames, with Sir Oliver Humperdinck in a green Hawaiian shirt and some kind of weird sumo shirt with a green cartoon figure on it that I couldn't quite figure out what it was.
I couldn't get it out of there.
He's a leprechaun.
Okay, sumo leprechaun?
Mm-hmm.
Barry Windham is already in the ring, which felt a little bit weird.
Yeah, right?
Some in the crowd loudly chant for Bam Bam during the introductions. He is definitely popular. Caudle tells us that Bigelow was announced at 390 pounds, but he'd had 396 in his notes, so he theorizes that Bigelow didn't eat as large a Christmas dinner as expected. JR puts it down to Bigelow trying to improve his cardio to keep up with Windham. I think that may be the more rational explanation.
Yeah, that's a better explanation than anything else.
They have a slow and careful start, with Windham taking time to try to come up with different strategies, but nothing really works for him. Bigelow even just pops right back up after a backdrop, earning a good freakout from Windham, who scampers right out of the ring on that. Later, Bigelow just flat out ignores several hard punches to the face and gets a huge military press slam on Windham, who rolls out to talk to Dillon. With Windham having slipped in and out of the ring several times by that point, ref Tommy Young mimes him getting in and out, clearly exasperated. JR notes that Bigelow doesn't move like a man that's nearly 400 pounds. He's a lot faster. Bigelow batters Windham with corner punches, and Windham pulls out his own version of the flare flop. A Bigelow dropkick, really impressive, sends Windham out over the top rope, and Dillon quickly demands a DQ, but it's turned down. It wasn't a throw, so yet again, that rule doesn't matter. Bigelow gets a nice stalling suplex and leans heavily on Windham on a reverse chinlock as the announcers note that he's wearing Windham out by making him carry his weight. Windham desperately throws Bigelow out through the middle ropes, and Bigelow lands on his knee, but Bigelow comes back in with a splash over the ropes, but he lets Windham up at the 2 count. Bigelow gets up on the top turnbuckle for a massive splash, but Windham dodges and Bigelow is dazed. Caudle points out that Bigelow could have won the match if he just stayed down on the earlier pin. Bigelow got overconfident. Windham takes over and nails a high-speed diving lariat and shows off his power by easily lifting Bigelow in a belly-to-back suplex. A notable portion of the crowd cheers Windham as he knocks Bigelow into the ring post, gets him back in, and gets his claw hold. Bigelow stumbles to the corner to force a break. Windham makes body-slamming Bigelow look easy, but Bigelow dodges an elbow drop off the top rope and starts fighting back. Windham hits a desperation crossbody, but both spill over the top rope, and the two brawl outside as Young counts. Windham rams Bigelow into the post and darts back into the ring, and Bigelow can't get back in before 10. Windham wins by countout.
It's really good at first, the story that Bam Bigelow is just so strong and powerful, and Windham is sort of befuddled by this. It's a pretty classic wrestling story, but definitely works here, because Bam Bam has that sort of air around him where you believe anytime he's no-selling this and, throwing the guy around. It's a little weird that they have him try to seem like he could have won, but literally lift the guy up.
Yeah.
Just trying to match around. The story of the night is slightly tweaking the formula, which I guess is good. Just, I don't know how well that one works. Obviously, I'll say many, many times in many, many episodes, my issue is the finish. Because they're fighting outside, and that is a very, very fast 10 count.
It is a fast 10 count, yeah, I'll give you that.
It's like a 6 count, maybe, if I'm being generous. The match is really good. It's just, it has 2 solid parts. It has Bam Bam unstoppable, and then once the weakness is there, Windham really can actually exploit that and sort of shows off there. But then once it starts turning around again, it just stops.
Yeah. Speaking of his pain tolerance and everything, the announcers even take time to build up that his head tattoo took like a full year of appointments to get fully done. So they kind of use that as building up. This guy can endure, quite a lot there as well. So it's kind of an interesting way of building it up, I guess.
Absolutely.
It's all in preparation. I actually like Bam Bam. I mean, I enjoyed watching him in WWF. It is beguiling how many splashes and like Dusty. He does move. He carries his weight well. And why I never really bought into the character too much, he does have a lot of prowess, and he didn't really hesitate at all during the match to fill that role. Wyndham reminds me of Dar the Beastmaster. I think everyone is starting to remind me of that. There's a point where he recovers and he screams and everything after Bigelow misses that giant splash off the top turnbuckle. And he screams and he holds his arms out. I was waiting for Ferrets to jump from the crowd and aid him in winning.
Should have morphed into squirrel form and gone out there, John.
Maybe. I didn't want Wyndham to win, but it is what it is.
Yeah. This had a bit of a slower pace than the earlier matches, but it still felt intense. Bigelow came off, like you were saying, as very tough, very durable, very strong. Had a really impressive showing. It's amazing how well he moves for such a big guy. And this is without him showing off his ability to actually do cartwheels at his size.
Mm-hmm.
He looked great in this match, and it was a very effective way of showing off his abilities. Wyndham, for his part, got to show off how surprisingly strong he is. He doesn't look like he's got a lot of pure power to him.
Yeah.
But between this match and last year's match, man, he's a strong guy. He knows how to use his muscle, I guess.
It's all tendon strength, as Paulie would say.
Yeah, it was impressive that he could lift a guy repeatedly as big as Bigelow without really any problems. I felt like the match was maybe a little bit too neat and tidy. There's a real, this is Bigelow's section, now this is Wyndham's section feel to it.
Yeah.
And while that exists in most matches, it felt a little more obvious here, I guess I'd say. On the ending, I'm kind of torn on it. I get what you're saying on it. It's another kind of not that great finish, but I do like that it's really clear that Wyndham tactically does this.
Mm-hmm.
He has better ring awareness, better awareness of the count than Bigelow, so he chooses his moment to run Bigelow into the post and dart back into the ring. And so it actually does feel like a true win for Wyndham. I like that it wasn't just like an accidental thing. Wyndham intentionally does this at just the right moment, and the announcers do a good job afterwards of building that up, I thought. But it is a pretty flat finish for a match that I think could have gone further and could have gotten even more intense. They seem to be hitting their stride and then it ends.
Yeah.
Not as suddenly as Dr. Death versus Wyndham last year, but
that was hitting something else. Yes.
Yeah. Still, it was a fun match. It had some great character work in it and some really impressive power moves. I just don't feel like it reached its full potential.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying with it being tactical, but trying to get the count out. But for me, it's still a count out finish and a title match, and it just the abruptness of it.
Yeah,
I would like to know where numbers 7 through 10 went. Well, the crowd didn't seem happy, and even the announcer's like, "Yeah, he left under the 8 count," and
yeah.
I wish I had more storyline context for why Oliver Humperdinck and a guy later be known as the Big Kahuna, this is the same guy, mind you, is managing Bam Bam Bigelow from Asbury Park, New Jersey. Big scary guy with a flame tattoo on his head.
Yeah.
For any fault he may have, Paul Jones would always adjust his look and style to the people he was with.
True, yeah.
Or the way that you'll later see with Jimmy Hart, where he has a jacket for every person he manages.
Oh my gosh, I love the Jimmy Hart jackets, yeah.
It's not really a thing in the match, it's kind of a thing I noticed. Is I don't see a connection between the manager and the guy.
Yeah, true.
That's the only thing. So, there's a pay dispute, among other issues, between the new management of the company and Bam Bigelow.
Of course.
It's described as a pay dispute and an issue of control. But you can guess which month he leaves in.
January.
Yes.
Good to know that even with a new company, we've got the same dang month causing problems.
Yeah. He goes off to All Japan Pro Wrestling, where he stays for quite a while. We will see him in a year because he's in Starrcade 2000. Barry Windham also leaves the new WCW in '89. It's later.
Uh-huh.
It's later. He takes time off to rehab a hand injury.
Oh, okay.
And then signs the WWF.
After a quick discussion where Caudle and JR highlight that Wyndham clearly paid close attention to where the count was and that's what won him the match, they throw to Magnum TA backstage with Rick Steiner.
I'm standing here with the new World Television Champion, Rick Steiner. Despite all odds, despite all the confusion, you pulled it off, just like you said.
You know, Mike's he's a tough wrestler, but, you know, every dog has his day, and today it was my day.
Well, did you and Alex do a lot of planning for this?
Well, you see, I got tired of them calling me stupid all the time, and now Kevin Sullivan and his stupid trick, he backfired. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I saw it. It was great.
Rest of the year?
No, I didn't say that. Alex may have told you that. I didn't say that.
You told me that.
No, I didn't say
won
that.
You give me free TV?
No, you got the World Television Championship. That's a tremendous title, and you're going to have a lot of people coming down trying to take that belt away from you.
Who?
Well, a lot of the wrestlers, a lot of guys are going to want a shot at that belt.
When?
Well, coming up here in the future.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll beat him.
That'd be great. And where's your dog?
Yeah,
Where's
that'd be
Spike?
great.
Where's Spike at?
Oh, I left him home in a cage. He didn't want to cut airline. Them, you know them airlines. They won't let him fly because he's a pit bull, and I don't know.
Well, regardless of whether Spike was here, I know this is one of the greatest days in your wrestling career. I'm glad to be standing here beside you.
Thank
and
you.
I hope you are very successful at defending this title.
Thank you very much. Let me shake your hand.
All right, let's go back to more action at ringside right now.
This was like no interview ever.
That is true.
Normally the interview more like intros the promo than lets the wrestler take over till the next question. But with this one, it was more Magnum being in charge and Steiner kind of just commenting on what he said. Part of that is because the sound cut out and we missed what looked like a longer bit of Steiner talking. But even so, it feels really unique. Steiner comes off as really like nice and likable, if not too bright.
Yeah.
And Magnum seems genuinely amused by his antics. They kind of have some good chemistry together, I think. So it came together fairly well for me. It's hard to hear because part of it is the part that's missing, but Steiner clearly thinks that winning the TV title gets him free TV service.
It's a pretty good deal.
Which is pretty amusing. I am not as fond of the Alex hand puppet stuff and all because it kind of puts it a little more towards the category of does he actually have some kind of disability or handicap or something?
Right.
Rather than just being, amusingly not that bright. Yeah, it gets a little bit more questionable to me, but Steiner's clueless act for me is otherwise pretty good, and he and Magnum, like I said, played off each other pretty well.
Yeah, there's a fine line between sort of being simple and, really very friendly like the way he is, and being, say, Radio, from the movie Radio, Cuba Gooding Jr., where there's obviously an actual thing causing him to be that way.
Yeah.
But I think he managed to steer it just the right direction, at least.
Yeah.
No, he's excited. I mean, like, if that's the character, he's playing it well. I don't know why they asked him about his dog or whatever, but, it is what it is. He's just trying to look for something to say because clearly Steiner was not taking the initiative and saying things. So, but I did like the exchange. Like he's obviously excited, and I like that he came back like immediately. Like, who's gonna take it? When?
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it?
They're like, oh, like tonight? Sure.
Our next match is Sting and Dusty Rhodes versus the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, with Precious Paul Ellering for the Road Warriors NWA World Tag Team Championship.
As the middle of the year approaches, the Road Warriors sort of slowly get a little more aggressive and get more heelish to the point where they beat the United Express in a pretty brutal match to win the titles that they didn't have. As part of that, they're then confronted by Sting and Dusty Rhodes, who don't like the new attitude and the way they've turned. So Dusty, being Dusty, is never backing down from a fight, calls him into the ring, says, guys want to take me out. And this is after they try to take Sting out. The idea is that they attacked him, probably tried to break his neck. Their idea is they're going above and beyond what you need to do to be champions.
Right, yeah. Like Dusty says in the opening, violence for the sake of violence.
Exactly. So they have an exchange on the November 26th WCW show where they come in the ring and they get the best of Dusty in a 2-on-1 exchange. It's not clear why Sting isn't there much sooner, but he kind of works on his own schedule. During the beatdown, Animal takes off one of the shoulder pads, which apparently just sort of screws off very easily from his outfit, which is kind of surprising to learn. You'd think that'd be like welded in or stuck in. He's like, no, it just kind of comes right off for easy shipping, I guess. And then attacks Dusty. He's supposed to be stabbing him in the eye with the spike. Yeah. It's a pretty bloody thing. So, of course, they run the segment live-ish. It's always a tape show. And then, at the end of the show, recap it and play the entire section all over again. So that leads us to this match where there's even more reason for Sting and Dusty to try and take these guys down because they're affecting everyone and everything around them with their violence. Also, as part of this, they were in a 6-man tag with Dusty Rhodes with the rarely mentioned NWA World 6-Man Tag Team Championships. So once they turn heel, they don't like Dusty anymore, obviously, and he doesn't like them. So they set up a match at the December 7th Clash show between Dusty and I believe it's Animal. And whoever wins that gets to control the titles. It's won via DQ by Animal because Dusty literally breaks the legs off of the sort of combination metal plastic chairs where the legs are metal but they're stuck on a plastic base.
Mm-hmm.
He really breaks that off on his leg, which looks pretty painful.
Yeah.
So the Road Warriors get to pick their own third person, but it amounts to nothing, unfortunately. It doesn't affect this match at all.
Sting has some awesome face paint this year. Cool light blue and white pattern. It looks great. Dusty is wearing a shirt that matches the color pattern, which is always a nice thing I like to see when you get two singles wrestlers working together, that one of them at least tries to kind of match up the other's look a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Give them a little bit more team identity. The Road Warriors, for their part, still look awesome.
Oh, yeah.
That spiked shoulder pads look will never get old.
Mm-mm.
They are two big dudes. The Road Warriors attack right after taking off their spikes, only to get beaten back by Sting and Dusty, with Sting hitting one heck of a dropkick on Hawk in particular. The Road Warriors back off outside the ring for a few moments to regroup, then slowly come back in to let the announcer actually do the introductions. Sting gets massive, massive cheers, especially after he does a stinger call. Dusty likewise gets really big cheers, though you can hear a few Road Warriors fans booing.
Mm-hmm.
The Road Warriors get loads of boos, but after the noise goes down, a few guys can be heard chanting LOD. Sting and Animal start, and Animal tries to overpower Sting, but Sting uses his agility to stay ahead of Animal and get the crowd into it, including a stinger call during a leapfrog. Actually, during the leapfrog.
Yes.
And another heck of a dropkick. Sting gets Dusty in for a bit to work on Animal's arm and claw at his eyes, and Animal tags out to Hawk, who goes aggressively after Dusty. Dusty escapes him to bring Sting back in, but Hawk rakes Sting's eyes and lands rapid punches and stomps in the corner, dazing Sting. He lays in more punches as Sting stands, and Sting misses one big haymaker, but lands a second to knock Hawk flat. Sting beats his chest and the crowd erupts as Sting gets a flurry of offense on Hawk, culminating in a great jumping elbow drop. Hawk tags Animal, who catches Sting with a military press, but Sting catches himself when Animal goes to drop him on the ropes and fires back with rapid strikes and clotheslines. Animal retreats to take a breather and Sting just dives right out after him to knock him down, then does an excited little jig and Stinger call for massive cheers.
And this time we actually get to see the dive.
Yes.
And a rare bit, the camera crew catches something this time that they missed last time.
True.
On purpose.
Yeah. Dusty in, and he starts working Animal's knee, but Animal tags Hawk, so Dusty gets Hawk with the figure 4 instead. But Animal evades Sting to break it up. Hawk recovers and focuses abuse on Dusty's face for howls of pain and one definite audible swear. I heard you, Dusty.
Mm-hmm.
Hawk also hits a nice dropkick. Dusty starts to recover and hits his own respectable dropkick, but Hawk and Animal trade off to keep him down. Hawk ultimately tries a sleeper, but Dusty frees himself with some kind of proto-stunner.
Yeah, it does look very similar.
Hawk tags Animal, but Dusty dives and tags Sting. Sting charges in and takes control, leading up to a big stinger splash to Animal's back. He grabs the Scorpion Deathlock, but Hawk gets in to break it up. Dusty gets in to try to defend Sting, but Hawk throws Sting over the top rope while the ref isn't looking. Hawk and Animal beat Dusty up, but Dusty kicks Animal in the nuts and ducks a Hawk clothesline, missed by the camera, shown in the replay, to send Hawk out of the ring. Sting climbs up on the top turnbuckle and dives off onto Animal for the 1, 2, and Paul Ellering pulls ref Tommy Young out of the ring for the DQ. Dusty beats up Ellering after the match, and Hawk comes in to try to beat up Sting, but Sting hits a big enziguri to take him out of the ring. Tommy Young holds up Sting in Dusty's arms to monster cheers, but Dusty and Sting do a good job of congratulating each other, but looking bummed at the DQ win, since it doesn't earn them the titles.
I really like the overall story of the match. It's very clear that the Road Warriors are very vicious. Sting and Dusty have to do their best to survive almost. And they do a really good job of sort of mixing up the offense, doing the power stuff. Dusty's big thing here, not to sound mean, but he's on the downturn wrestling-wise with his physical abilities. Though he does do that nice dropkick, and he has good moments. Not like he had nothing to give. It's clearly not the same guy he was in, say, 85 in that really lengthy match with Flair.
Yeah, the dropkick just surprised me because I've seen him try to do a dropkick before, and the first time wasn't too good.
Oh, yeah.
But this one, it looked like, oh, that's respectable.
Yeah.
So,
that part aside, he does his role there fairly well because he's really likable. He has his strikes, and it goes back to the story of him, the eye being attacked.
yeah.
It helps make it clear that even if you like LOD, they're trying to blind a man, and they are definitely the bad guys here.
Yeah.
There's not as much gray as maybe they want to think. Unsurprisingly, my issue is the finish. It's just the final part of the finish. It goes straight through like it would normally for a win, and then manager pulling the ref out and attacking was just like the sort of laziest way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame because I really liked everything leading up to it. Then, like with the match before, it just kind of stops because here's the ending of the match, and we're not having a title change, and we're not giving you a clear ending. And it's one of those things I like with the Bam Bam match, what I really liked. If I didn't care about the match and it's great finish, then it wouldn't bother me because I had no investment. But both times I had an investment, and then I just get everything pulled out from under me, and I get to enjoy it.
Yeah, this one, the ending bothered me a lot more than the Bam Bam match. The Bam Bam match, it felt like, okay, that's still a win for Wyndham.
Yeah, and I completely get what you're saying there, yeah.
Where with this one, it felt like, okay, that's just really cheap. I get the rules are rules idea, but come on, if I was the ref and my hand was clearly about to come down for the third time and I got pulled out of the ring by the heel manager, I'd just slap the mat from the outside and award the match to Sting. And, the ref has discretion on the top rope stuff all the time. We see that all the time, that thing gets ignored or excused or, oh, the ref's decision, yada, yada. He doesn't have a discretion on this. He has to DQ him because they laid his hands on him. It's like, it feels like he should have a choice, right?
Yeah.
He is the ref.
Yeah, you would think he'd be able to decide, no, I was about to count 3, so 3, win, good,
I'm gonna go back to the beginning of the match because I want to be really excited. I don't.
Okay.
I don't want to think about the end. I'm happy to see Dusty Rhodes and Sting and they're working the crowd. I feel a little bit for Dusty at this point in the match. I'm like, well, Sting's getting all the love with the camera, but when they zoom out, you can see the crowds cheering equally. They're just taking their time. But it looks like Dusty's just following Sting around at the very beginning. And then when they go to the next camera switch to do the entrance for the Road Warriors, I don't know if it's the lighting or whatever it is, and I'm thinking, oh, this is stock footage. This is sort of, like whatever. They're doing one of their entrance thing. They're going to build them up, a little bit. And then I'm like, I didn't even notice that they got in the ring with Dusty and Sting, and I'm like, okay, so what's this promo going to tell me? And then they start fighting. I'm like, oh, wait, why is this? What's going on?
I could see that actually, yeah.
So yeah, a very abrupt and wonderful beginning. This match really tugged at me quite a bit. At this point, I'm watching through Starrcade 1988. I'm wondering, why isn't this the main show? Because I want to root for all 4 contestants. I like Sting and I like Dusty, and we have met Hawk.
Yeah.
And Animal is always a great presence. Whether his leg's broken or not, he's doing good. I kind of wish Dusty had face paint on so that they would all have face paint.
That's true. Yeah, that's one thing that he could have done to even more imitate Sting's look. And it would have looked cool, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
There's not a downside in the match for me until the end. I'm just rooting for every person. Anytime it cuts to them, I'm like, all right, this is great. And Animal, in particular, seems exceptionally brutal. This one, like he's biting Dusty's head. One of the great spots is where Animal's working on him, and Dusty's holding on to the ring, and he just starts like flopping around and dancing, and they have Sting in the back like calling to the crowd, and it's just like I'm like that's such a Dusty way to shrug off blows and come back. He's just like I'm just rolling with it, whatever. Like it fits his personality.
Sure.
As far as the ending, at least they're doing things differently. They're trying to do different endings with all the match. Had the double count out with 2 refs, and I'm glad that Rhodes and Sting win though. With them going after Dusty, this is kind of adds a little bit of resolution to their storyline, even if it's not the way that you want it to end.
They still get a win. It's kind of one of those let's protect everybody kind of endings.
But you could easily say, no, I won. I still had you pinned for like 2 more seconds after, they had the interference.
So you still felt like there was a good like emotional payoff there for you?
Yeah, at the end, both Sting and Dusty are, look like they're genuinely celebrating, even though it's not the ending they would normally want.
Mm-hmm. This was really fun and had some of the best crowd reactions of the night, for sure, this side of the Rick Steiner match.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Sting and Dusty. There's no way the crowd isn't going to be screaming their heads off at that one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I really liked it. The Road Warriors had really impressive power, as always. Dusty still gets great crowd reactions, and I noticed he was really properly used in this match, I thought. He plays face in peril. So you get to have Dusty, the older wrestler, making the Road Warriors look really good and making Sting look really good because Sting gets to come in and show off his moves and save him and everything. So it's a really good use for Dusty, I think, in this match. It's like this match and last year's Luger match. I think Dusty was pretty effectively used to kind of like build someone up. Sting gets to show off his amazing agility, strength, and crazy jumping ability. It is not really any surprise when I found out that Sting played basketball in high school.
Yeah, it's a gimme.
He is by far the star of this match. Even with Dusty and the Road Warriors in there, who are all great performers, Sting stands out as an incredibly gifted performer. The match itself doesn't push much beyond the usual tag formula, though I think that only stands out so much maybe because, this is the 4th tag match on this show.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still an exciting and really well-worked match, and it gets great mileage out of some of wrestling's biggest personalities. Like we said, the ending feels like a pretty big letdown, but it's a really fun little match. There's nothing exceptional story-wise, but there's really, really great character work.
LOD, violence for violence sake.
There you go.
Yeah, so remember that whole Dusty with the spike thing?
Yeah, that great emotional angle that set up this match, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so he was told not to do that, and then he did it anyways. So they waited till after Starrcade and fired him.
That is a big loss.
Yeah.
I think that's like, as far as personality and centrality to the company goes, I think that's the biggest loss we've had.
Yeah.
Over these shows.
Yeah, the biggest loss you could have at this point is Dusty or Flair leaving.
Yeah, and wow, that's enormous. I mean, I guess it's kind of weird that they wait this long. It's weird that if they have such a problem with the spike angle, I get that they maybe couldn't do anything about it the night it originally aired, but it's in the opening video package.
Yeah.
If you have that big of a problem with it, wouldn't you tell them don't use that again? Just show the earlier strikes or something? And then I do get why you don't can him immediately, because you kind of need him for the storyline and everything. Yeah. But I do wonder if he knew going into this that he was done, or if...
I don't know on that one.
Yeah.
It's literally a month from the angle happens February 26th, and this show is December 26th.
Yeah.
They have a month to decide what to do. They decided to keep him around, let the show go on as it is, and then do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Now, is it like a liability where they think they're going to get fined because of the no blood, or?
It's a network choice. They weren't super firm about that before, because obviously they were on his network. But basically it was, well, you do your own thing, your own network, and we'll give you notes. But now they're literally owned by the people that produce the show.
Yeah.
So they obviously have a lot more power over the show and people involved.
And I would imagine it's probably less that Dusty did this particular angle and more that he did this particular angle after being told specifically not to do something like that.
Yeah.
So it's the defiance of orders rather than, necessarily the nature of what happened. But
Well, it is unfortunate, but I do think that it liability might even be part of it, because they would still, if they still use the video spot, it's not because, it's already done, they just don't try to profit from it or whatever. But, here's an asset that, they would love to build up, but if he's just going to have a career-ending injury next month or next time they tell him not to do something, that's a big loss for them.
Yeah, true, definitely. On the right side, I know Dusty does return eventually, but I believe this is the end of his full active in-ring career in WCW.
Correct.
On the first actual WCW show.
Yep, pretty much. As far as the rest of it, Sting goes on to challenge for the world title following this, and has a lot of interesting matches following Flair and other people for that. As for the tag team titles, like with the TV title, they're heavily contested. They changed hands quite a few times during 1989, which builds up towards the next show we're going to do, which the champions going to that show, not that they're on the line, mind you, are Rick and Scott Steiner, the Steiner brothers.
That'll be cool. Tony and Magnum discuss the match, and Magnum says that Sting and Dusty showed that the Road Warriors are not invincible. They could be beaten. They build up that, while a disqualification saved the Road Warriors there, Flair can't count on that in the match coming up, because for the upcoming Flair versus Luger match, Flair will lose the title if he gets disqualified. Magnum says that he thinks that Luger is up for the challenge, but Tony says in baseball they have a Mr. October, and in the NWA they have a Mr. Starrcade, Ric Flair. So our final match is Lex Luger versus Ric Flair with J.J. Dillon for Flair's NWA World Heavyweight Championship.
So, as mentioned in the follow-up on last show, by the beginning of the year, Luger turns face, quits the Four Horsemen. He gets the whole thing with Barry Windham, who turns on him. That sort of leads into him moving from challenging for the lower card titles and the tag titles to going right after the top, going after Flair. They have some matches throughout the year. Basically, Ric Flair always finds a way to escape, including a DQ situation, thus setting up the no DQ for this match so he can't escape with the title with the DQ.
I think it's interesting that they didn't go for just a solid no DQ match. There are DQs, but Flair loses the title if he gets DQ'd. I think that's actually kind of a nice move on Luger's part if it's what he was gunning for, because, if it's no DQ match, then Flair can just say, hey, Horseman, come on down,
Yeah, exactly.
Where if it's a DQ match, he still has to be really, really careful in this one.
Yeah.
It's sort of his style.
Yeah. Luger comes out to some interesting music. It sounds kind of like a grungy post-apocalyptic 80s movie theme, is all I could kind of gather from it. It does make me kind of sad that Luger has lost the nice robe that he had, because he's turned face. Flair, of course, still has his robes, and this time it's green and gold.
Mm-hmm.
We get a pro-Flair sign in the crowd that decries Lex Luger, but another sign says that Lex Luger is going to kick some booty in public, if you will. That's a Dusty line.
Yes.
Maybe Dusty said that in support of Luger at some point. I don't know. It was just kind of weird to see a Dustyism on a Luger sign. It's like the colliding of universes.
Yeah. Speaking of that guy with that sign, he is all over that show, too.
Yeah.
He's in the front row.
Shows up all the time.
And it's kind of weird. The part that I didn't think they have issue with the filming is that it seems like there's a really small gap between the outside where the barricade is and the ring.
Yeah.
Like, when they're going behind Bob Caudle and Jim Ross, there's a very small gap. You sort of, got to tuck your way through it where...
Well, it's because we've decided to stick the announce table right up against the ring.
Right. What it comes down to is that guy holding the sign up is 4 feet from the ring apron practically, So anytime the camera moves in towards Cottle and JR, he's like, "Oh, me," and they point a sign at it.
JR notes that Luthez is in attendance. I wonder how he felt about seeing his move fail in the first match. JR says that many say that Luthez is the greatest champion ever. JR is leaning towards Flair.
Wait, not Ron Garvin?
No, not Ron Garvin.
Okay, go on.
Sadly. He also notes that Flair was Rookie of the Year in 1975, and in 1986, the Rookie of the Year was Lex Luger. That's kind of a good hard sell of Luger's potential, I thought. Luger gets a very good reaction, if it's not quite as good as Sting or Dusty. Some people cheer Flair, but everybody boos Dylan.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest cheers come from the announcement of the special DQ title loss rule. JR notes that Luger is down 13 pounds because Flair's cardio is among the best, and he and Caudle discuss Luger wanting to pick up some speed and endurance to stay with Flair for the duration. Flair gives a woo to Luger starting out, and celebrates countering a whip by stopping himself with the ropes, even going so far as to high-five Dylan and give Luger a smug grin. Luger wipes the smile off his face with a clothesline out of the ring. We get a shot of Luthez in the crowd as Flair comes back in. It looked like he was having some fun. Flair tries to out-wrestle Luger, but Luger holds his own and stays calm. Flair gets enraged and charges. Luger hits a power slam and a military press to take solid advantage, and uses a series of holds to wear Flair down some more, while shrugging off Flair's strikes and powering out of his holds. Luger applies a hammerlock with a lot more energy than you normally see, really wrenching on the arm, which looked cool. It takes an eye poke to get Luger reeling, but Flair just can't get him worn down and can't get away from him. JR tries to make a point about how having Luthez in the crowd really might be a good luck charm for Flair, because he won at the first Starrcade with Gene Kiniski, another wrestling legend present. It seems tenuous at best.
That's a bit of a stretch, yeah.
Yeah. Luger hits a huge stalling suplex, but misses an elbow drop, and Flair finally gets some sustained offense by hurling Luger out through the ropes and landing strikes on him outside, assisted by the barricades. Luger starts to recover and no-sells a chop, jiggling his pecs. Is that his version of the Hulk up? I kind of like it. Luger grabs a sleeper, but Flair counters with a belly-to-back suplex that leaves both laying. Flair going up top goes even worse than usual, as Luger superplexes him down. Luger gets the figure four. Ref Tommy Young kicks Flair's hands off the ropes the first couple times he goes to them to break, but accepts it the third time. It didn't look like Flair or Dylan cheated there, so I wasn't really sure why he was kicking the hands away.
He just doesn't like Ric Flair, that's all it is.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe it's just he instinctively thinks Ric Flair figure four spot must kick ropes, you know. Luger goes after Flair, but accidentally elbows Young, and Flair throws Luger over the top rope. Luger lands on his feet and climbs up top to dive on Flair for two. Luger takes it to Flair and gets enormous cheers and calls for the torture rack, but Dylan distracts Luger so Flair can roll out. With Young distracted, Flair grabs a chair and nails Luger in the knee, then goes to work on the leg, earning a Luger cell that actually gets bleeped.
Oh, yeah, he's for the adult audiences there.
Yeah. Flair gets the figure four. The crowd chants for Luger, and Luger fights the hold, so Flair slaps him.
Oh.
That turns out to be a mistake, as Luger screams in rage and powers the hold over so Flair has to break. Luger keeps after Flair, but his power moves take a lot out of him now, and he has to use the ropes to stand back up with his leg injured. Flair tries a jumping forearm, but Luger just stands there and Flair bounces off in an awesome spot. After a big power slam, Luger goes for the torture rack, but his leg gives out, and Flair lands on top and puts his feet on the ropes for the 3 count and the win. Luger tries to tell Young that Flair was using the ropes, but Young says he didn't see it, and awards the match to Flair. Dylan helps an exhausted and battered Flair out of the ring.
I really liked it. The best comparison I have for this match is the match from '86, where it's Nikita Koloff and Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Where it's the young power guy against Ric Flair, the cheating heel. I obviously really like that match, but I almost feel like this is maybe the better version, even better version of that, because that one had the mix of mostly just power and striking against Flair, whereas they have more moves here and a little more story. There's an even ebb and flow to it. A slightly more balanced, more nuanced version of that match, I would think.
Yeah.
Obviously, Luger is fun to listen to because he sells everything for the back row. There's that joke they made earlier about the sailors and ships at sea heard that one clothesline.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure they are kept up at night by Luger constantly shouting as they try to sleep.
Though I did notice there's one section in the middle of the match where he's so worn down by what Flair's doing that he actually stops Luger selling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like that's his super selling is I'm not going to make any noise.
Well, what's the thing? So there's that famous glitch from Civilization where they made Gandhi so peaceful that it looped back around,
Right, yeah.
and he's super violent. It's the same thing. He's in so much pain that it looped all the way back around. And he's silent. And yes, it's compared Gandhi in Civilization to Lex Luger. I'm proud of myself. But no, I really liked the story. My only issue really is that on Luger's side, there's no build to figure 4. He's beating him up. It's really good. And then somebody's like, superplex. That targets the back, so I'll go after figure 4.
Do you think maybe that's an intentional storyline thing, that it's showing Luger doesn't have the technical expertise of Rick? Or do you think it's just an oversight?
I don't know. I mean, I could see that if, going back to the Koloff Flair match, where there was clearly that, not that Koloff couldn't wrestle, because obviously he could and did, but that was definitely more about him just using raw power and striking. I could see if that was in that match, that would make perfect sense as that answer.
Yeah.
But he's doing arm holds, he's doing suplexes, doing body slams. So I don't quite see that. I think it's just, we have this middle point and we have to have the face use figure 4 and Ric Flair. It just kind of didn't connect. It's not really bad thing. It's just, it stands out because everything else is so good and suddenly like, oh, figure 4 time now.
Yeah.
A little build up to that would have been nice.
Okay.
Flair's side, obviously Flair, once he can cheat and use the chair, he's obviously going right after figure 4. And I like that it plays into the finish. It's one of those things where it does make Luger look a little dumb. He could just not go for torture rack. He's shown he can throw Ric Flair around and withstand his chops. But instead he goes, no, I'm going to do a move where I have to lift him up on my bad knee, and then the move also involves me shaking up and down to cause torque, and oh no, that hurts my knee. Like,
if they'd done a little bit more of, I just can't keep him down, I have to go for my big move, where it doesn't quite feel like they get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where when they have repeated matches and more experience together, a little thing like that get worked out. Obviously, there's a screwy finish aspect to it, but very similar to what you were saying with the Wyndham using the advantage and figuring out when to knock Bam Bam down and get in there. It really goes down to the smarter heel using a nefarious thing. So it doesn't bother me nearly as much as those previous 2 matches the finish did. Because even though it's a cheating finish, it is still a clean-ish finish.
Yeah.
As clean as a heel Ric Flair finish and he wins, the pinfall finish is going to be, using all those caveats there.
This is probably one of the matches I actually like Rick. Not that I don't like Ric Flair. I'm just saying this one, I think he did a really good job building up Lex. There are some points where I found it funny when they were talking about how Lex had lost weight to gain speed. And I don't really think of Ric Flair being super fast out of all the other wrestlers. I think he's cunning, or, he has some strategy there. But no, he did a good job, really selling a bunch of those whips where he heads towards the turnbuckle and flips himself around and then flops down, which is always a little comical to me. But then you have Luger selling on top of that. So
it's all good.
I didn't know if they'd hold hands and then they in the middle and they both looked like they were in pain. It felt weird to see Luger use a wrist lock or some sort of arm submission. At least with his physique, it seems like he would be just do nothing but slams and jumps and everything. So I thought that was a little odd.
Or John, he could have done a bear hug.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Could have. Okay, well, a sleeper, it's just like a modified bear hug. It's a face. It's a face hug.
Yeah. Not what I think of when I hear the word face hug, but yes.
Well, Aliens is out, and it just seemed like Luger was doing moves that didn't really. I mean, I haven't seen him wrestle other than, the last Starrcade, but it just seems like I don't remember him doing a figure four or a wrist lock. I don't know if it's just
You felt like it didn't really fit his style.
Maybe not. Again, I haven't seen enough of his wrestling to really fully say that, but it seemed like, he had chosen the leg lock to show Rick he could do it too.
Yeah.
Beat him with his own moves kind of thing. I did like the pectoral comeback that he did where he's like flaunts and taunts his abilities and then goes all, would you say Hogan-esque or...
Yeah, it's like the Hulk up, but in his case, it's pec jiggles, which it's something Luger does frequently, and he's inordinately proud of that talent, which I would be if I had pecs.
When they're doing the leg lock and he does that slow crunch up and then he slaps him in the face and then he hulks out again. I thought that was done well.
Yeah.
Good camera work, and the crowd seemed to love it at that time. I don't get the ref. I only need 10% of my field of vision to see that they're pinned. I need to look towards the camera constantly.
Iron will and focus.
I know they did that to kind of save face for Lex, where like, oh, well, he took advantage of me, other than messing with my knee and everything. But I kind of wish they would just gave it to Rick without having to do the last bit of dirtiness. I just want to be happy that the person overcome adversity rather than inflict it.
It's probably just muscle memory at this point. He knew the ropes.
Yeah.
He just started climbing them.
He might not even be supposed to do it. It's just like...
Yeah.
But Luger did a good job, and I guess Rick had to win.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one. It's actually about 35 minutes long, I think.
I believe so.
But it doesn't feel like it.
No.
There is some repetition in the match. Luger repeatedly does corner punch spots, and he hits several power slams over the course of it, for instance. But it never really slows down or feels dull. Luger has a lot of personality in this match, and he interacts really well with the crowd. And Flair plays off him really, really well and really shows the fear of Luger's ability to just keep coming through all his strikes. Luger doesn't actually feel outright superhuman.
No.
Flair's able to wear him down a few times in the match, so it feels like we have a pretty nice back and forth flow after Luger's initial rush of offense. Luger does a pretty nice job selling the leg, and there's a nice sort of theme difference in his moves. Early in the match, he easily uses his power and even uses a big stalling suplex, while later in the match, especially after the chair hit to the knee, he uses shorter throws and his knee gives out after the only longer one, a military press.
True.
It's a nice way of building to the ending, I thought. I liked the foot on the ropes pin for this one because I thought it really, really builds up Luger. Even with the injury and Luger's mistake in going for the torture rack, it nicely feels that Flair just barely sneaks out a win over him. So it gets you looking forward to, okay, what could Luger accomplish with a little more seasoning,
And he did a collapse at the end, so he needed to call upon whatever he could.
Yeah. Like with last year's Luger versus Dusty, it feels like this match does a ton to build up Lex Luger, and he doesn't lose his momentum in losing here.
No.
I came off feeling like Luger could definitely hang with the world champion. I totally bought him at that level. So really a lot of credit to both guys here for some great character work and for maintaining a really fast pace over quite a long match. Excellently done.
I do have to wonder, how many times does he have to do the chop and it has no effect that he learns? Because it happened with when he fights Sting as well as Luger. Other people, probably Hogan as well.
Yeah.
Hogan matches. I'm guessing something happens. He keeps trying them. 10 minutes later, he'll try them again and go, wait, it didn't work?
He even hurts his hand on one of them this time.
Yes.
I assume it's because Lex countered the chop with a pec jiggle.
Right.
And maybe pinned his hand there.
Yeah.
In the coming months, Ric Flair is attacked by a masked Ricky Steamboat, who makes his return to WCW.
A happy ending.
For us, anyway. Ricky Steamboat's back.
Yeah. They would go on to have what many wrestling purists call the greatest match of all time. The problem is that that's not Starrcade next year, so we're not covering it yet.
Yeah.
I had to talk about the Four Horsemen because they have an interesting 89. So I have to go back just a little bit for this. So Going into 88, when the year starts, the Four Horsemen, you've got Ric Flair, managed by J.J. Dillon. You've got Lex Luger, who doesn't stay that long, obviously, placed by Barry Windham, so it's kind of a fairly even trade. And you've got Arn and Tully.
Yeah.
Come September, Arn and Tully leave for the WWF, which is why they dropped the titles to the Midnight Express, who quickly dropped them to the Road Warriors. And then you have stuff I talked about before, like Barry Windham leaving. Following that bit where Max Steamboat attacked Ric Flair, he gets really mad and fires J.J. Dillon in storyline. When in fact J.J. Dillon goes to work for WWF and back office job.
Okay.
So they now needed a replacement for the sort of manager, overseer character. Their solution is to take Hiro Matsuda and make him the new manager, overseer character for the Four Horsemen. Other people join. I'll talk about that in the next show because it's kind of interesting. But the worst thing that happened, unfortunately, through the middle of the year is, with all these people gone, with Hiro Matsuda now overseeing them, there's a brief period where there is no Four Horsemen. In its place, there is the Yamazaki Corporation.
Okay.
That's what it become when it's managed by Hiro Matsuda.
Okay.
Michael P.S. Hayes joins. They tease other people joining. But yeah, this is kind of forgotten dark period where they're literally not even Four Horsemen. Thankfully, they sort of rebound towards the end of the year. But yeah, I was surprised to learn that the period where they rechristened the Four Horsemen the Yamazaki Corporation.
That's not quite as intimidating a name, is it?
No.
I don't know.
If it was Kawasaki, they could at least all have motorcycles.
Kawasaki would have been good. My first thought reading it was that maybe it's related to Die Hard, but it's actually not the different Japanese name.
Oh, yeah.
The building in Die Hard is, yeah. Following what's, I'm sure you'll mention, is billed as Luger's final title match, which obviously is not the case. He would go on to challenge for the U.S. title throughout this 89.
We go back to the announcers, and Tony, JR, and Caudle all agree that Luger really proved himself despite the loss. Caudle says that he will definitely be world champ one day. JR and Caudle have to talk over an announcement about the upcoming Bunkhouse Stampede match, which we won't get. It is a dark match for this show. Following that, we go backstage with Magnum for an interview with Ric Flair.
Standing here with the man, Ric Flair, who just retained the world's heavyweight title. Despite all odds, despite what all the skeptics said, maybe Ric Flair was pushed to the ultimate limit, but he is still the world's heavyweight champion.
Well, I've come to live by one motto, and that is survival. This is the greatest, toughest sport in the world. This is the National Wrestling Alliance, the Big Daddy. There's nothing like it. And tonight, for 3 hours, people around the world saw the best competition in a man's sport, the National Wrestling Alliance. And Ric Flair, once again, call it luck, call it the grace of God, call it the scab off the end of my chin, whatever you want to call it, I'm standing here. I never claimed to play this game by the rules. I play it Ric Flair's way, and that's to win at all costs. And here I am, and I'll tell you, and the Crockett's, and Ted Turner, and anybody else that doesn't like it, to get this, you gotta beat this. Bottom line. So
Ladies
Luger,
and gentlemen, it is now time for the Bunkhouse Stampede.
This message goes especially to you and those millions of adoring fans that look at you as being their idol figure, their role model, whatever they live and breathe every day. That's what you represent, Luger. But the bottom line is, right now, you will never wrestle Ric Flair again for the World's Heavyweight Wrestling Championship. It's going to cost James Dillon a lot of money, but when you're the world champion, money's no problem. Lawyers, Ted Turner, Crockett, it makes no difference. Luger, you had your last shot tonight. That was it, pal. How do you like that, huh? You like being told by me, you're done? That's it. One shot. You, my friend, are history.
the eyes of the champ. Woo! Yes, Lex Luger! Woo!
Ric Flair is awesome. He's in full lunatic ranting mode here, and it is great. In past years, he's come off as, still respectful or still a fighting champion, even if he's towing the line. Not here.
No.
Here he is full-on ranting villain that just wants to take the win and deny the hero another shot. It really makes you want to see Luger somehow get another shot at him anyway, and wipe that smug grin off his face, maybe with another monster clothesline outside the ring. The Bunkhouse Stampede announcement is unfortunately timed.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
I wonder, was it just that loud where they could actually hear it backstage, or did they forget to turn off the ring announcer sound feed again?
No, I think the echo, they could have just had one of the doors open or something.
Yeah.
Or it could have been playing over the PA in the hallway outside where the room they're in or something.
It's just like, this continues to happen this night. It's, oh well. It's a great promo anyway. It's fun to watch, and it made me want to see Flair beaten.
I would like for you to convince me that there's no drug use involved in that rant. I thought it was a good promo from him. He just kept on escalating. I don't know if it was just because he wanted to talk over the other announcements.
Yeah, true.
Or, he had something to say, but he talks about, it's going to take a lot of money and you have to go through me, but guess what? You're not going to get a chance.
Yeah, he starts out just, claiming victory. Then he goes to Luger, I hate you and all of your fans. And then he goes to, I'm also never giving you ever another title shot against me, and no matter how much money it takes me. How do you like that? And you're just like, he's just being a jerk now.
Yeah.
Because we've had the true Ric Flair as a performer for a few shows now, but on those shows we haven't gotten an actual Ric Flair promo for the past couple years. So this is, I think, our first actual look at the evil lunatic Ric Flair, just arrogant heel promo style.
Yeah.
And it's terrific. You can see why he has such a long career in wrestling. He's one of the best talkers in the business by far. It's absolutely amazing to see.
I was a little annoyed when I first learned that there's this crazy Bunkhouse Stampede match and we don't get it. But then I'm reading Wikipedia about it, seeing who's in it. I'm not as sad about it. It's won by Junkyard Dog, the only guy to win a bunkhouse match that's not Dusty Rhodes, because he won every one of them that actually counted. But among the competitors, you have Abdul the Butcher, sadly cut from the show. I know Bob is disappointed. The team of Commando Ray and Commando Boone, one of whom was one half of the Zambui Express.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Some people I do like. Eddie Gilbert. Actually, this would have been a first Dustin Rhodes appearance.
Oh, really?
He's in the Bunkhouse Stampede. He just doesn't win it.
Interesting.
All of the Midnight Express people are in it. Also, the Fanatics are in it. We get Larry Zbyszko, which is kind of weird. And Al Perez, who at one point was going to be a huge star, and then they never really followed up on it. There's a little bit we'll get in a couple of shows, but it's not quite the same. But yeah, I was like, oh, it's a match I'm going to see. I'm like, I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm good.
A lot of people working 2 matches that night going into the Bunkhouse Stampede.
Yeah.
You got all the Midnights, you got Junkyard Dog, that's... I'll keep looking. If we find it, we can watch it and do a mini review or something.
Oh, okay.
We go back to the announcers to wrap up the show. Tony reflects on the NWA developing from individual territories to a national power. He wonders where the NWA goes from here, riding on the shoulders of one of the greatest champions, Ric Flair. As they go into 1989, Tony sees good things coming for the NWA. JR and Caudle try to discuss what's coming up next, battling sound errors, and Caudle finally gets out that the NWA is like a shooting star. It's going to take off. I don't think that's how shooting stars work.
No.
I think they more descend.
They also got to wonder, so they're super braggadocious at the end of this show, roughly a month removed from having to be bought out to stay in business.
Yeah, true.
So is that them just really being braggart about it, or is it like a weird defense mechanism? Yeah, we're great forever. Definitely nothing can go wrong.
I could see it's that, or it might. I mean, honestly, I could characterize it as relief that they're like, we saw the dark times and we might be coming out of them now.
I don't get that latter part of it from the promo, or from the way they say it. It's just like, we're the best, always been the best forever.
They recap the night and promote the next show, and we close with a video package of the show's matches. Starrcade 88 has drawn to a close. What are your overall thoughts?
It's a pretty strong show. It's more memorable for me than 87 was. 87 was good, but it all kind of blends together. Even now, like a month removed, I don't have tons of memories specifically. I'm sure I could be prompted to go, oh yeah, that thing, but
yeah,
they don't come to me right away, whereas I feel like a lot of this stuff still can stick with me. All the matches are pretty solid. There's only one weak point for me. That's early enough in the show that they can sort of move past it. Obviously, there's a lot of dusty booking that I have issues with. Either non-finishes, like this DQ, or sort of shady finishes, like the countout, or convoluted finishes, like with the TV title. They don't ruin the show, and the show is thankfully staying at the 7-match length and staying shorter than other shows were, like 86.
Yeah.
It's definitely a solid show. There's enough there, even if you don't like the finishes, you can enjoy everything, for me, I would say.
I enjoyed watching this one, with the Road Warriors and Dusty Rhodes and Sting match in particular. I know you're going to ask us that later, but...
Spoilers.
Sorry.
No, good.
The first two matches were quick. We didn't really have the normal... Everything went off with a bang. I thought that promo footage was actually turned into a match suddenly. Got to meet some new people. A lot of great backstory now that we've done this review. There's a lot. The matches all have a little bit more meaning to me now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is my favorite match with Ric Flair.
Good. Yeah.
Nice.
He's on an upswing for you. That's good if it's going upward in trajectory.
Mm-hmm. One of those non-shooting stars.
Yeah. For me, it's the tale of two shows. The wrestling on this show, the performances, the announcing, all that is really good. The production, however, has backslid almost all the way to where we were at Starrcade 83. I really wasn't expecting that at all. This is now being run by an actual TV company. So I thought that things like camera work, sound equipment, and all like that would be on the upswing. But they were all serious downgrades from last year. The sound was inconsistent. They seemed to struggle to keep the mics working properly. Mics cut out in interviews and announcing segments. The wrong sound feeds played at times. Even when everything seemed to be working, something just seemed wrong with the sound levels this year. I know I don't have that much room to talk as my own audio editing isn't that great, but the way things seemed to jump or dive in volume was just distracting, and the announcers even got drowned out by the entrance music. The camera work was even worse than prior years for the most part, and without the excuse of the scaffold or cages this time.
Yeah.
There's important moments in matches that are frequently just not quite in frame, the wrong angles are chosen. One particular camera seemed constantly tilted off kilter a little bit.
It did, yeah.
Production was just shoddy, apart from the opening video package, which was great. But the show itself was really, really good. We had 7 matches. 6 of them were great fun, and the one remaining one was, it was acceptable enough to me. Everyone seemed motivated, and they put on excellent performances. We got some wonderful, genuine moments like Steiner's title win, alongside some excellent character work like Lunatic promo Ric Flair and the Cornette versus Dangerously scuffles. The matches had emotion and felt really, really important. The announce teams definitely helped there. JR and Caudle emphasized the history of the wrestlers involved and built up their personal stories, and Tony and Magnum brought up the chain of title matches and helped hammer home each match story and how the night was progressing. I thought the 2 announce teams would feel strange, but it actually worked really well for me. The transitions felt natural, and the 2 teams played well off of each other. I particularly liked Caudle bringing up the predictions that Tony and Magnum made to put his own spin on them. Caudle and JR had great chemistry as a commentary team, and similar to Tony and JR last year, they had some good discussions that really brought out the story of the matches. There was I felt like a kind of excitement in the air on this one in general. The crowd was happy, and aside from a few rebellious voices, they really cheered on the faces. The wrestlers and hosts, though, seemed excited here too. I guess it's not that hard to understand. JCP was struggling this past year.
Yes.
But now things are different, and people can keep doing what they love. I guess maybe that's it. There's a feeling of possibility here, I think. People being excited for the future. For now, at least, it feels like a hopeful company. The show's order is pretty strange.
Yes.
We have 3 tag matches in a row, then 2 singles matches, then a tag match, then a singles match. The first 2 tag matches were really great, but it still felt like maybe we could have done with breaking those up with some of the singles stuff. Or 2 in a row maybe, but 3, that's a little much. And honestly, 4 tag matches is just maybe too many for one show. No matter how hard they worked, it was hard not to feel a little bit too samey by the end.
Unlike previous shows, none of them had an extra gimmick like having a cage.
Yeah, it's all just straight tag.
Yeah.
Do you think it was a timing thing where like we want to get everyone in, but we have so much time for matches and we'd rather...
Yeah, maybe, I mean, it's just like, I think it just is the angles that they ended up working this year just all naturally lent themselves to tag matches, but there's really a lot of them. Production difficulties and weird show order aside, this was a really, really fun watch and is among my favorite Starrcades thus far. There's some backsliding here with the production and all, but by and large, something went really right this year. And while I'll talk your ears off about the sound and camera issues and how odd it feels that we've gone back to very basic entrances again, this was a great show. Time for match of the night and MVP. Al, you want to go?
Sure. So I debated a lot of our matches of the night. I really like the Rick Steiner Mike Rotunda match. As I said, my issue with how they sort of got to the finish is the only thing that keeps it from being match of the night for me. Likewise, I really liked the opening match from the Fantastics. While there was some nice nuance to it, it wasn't quite enough to take it above like a really good tag match to being extra special, like with the Rock and Roll Express versus the Anderson, for example.
Yeah.
It makes it me hard to top that, and I hope someone does. So it comes down to me for the highest quality one with the closest thing to also having a clean finish. So that's why I picked Flair Luger.
Okay.
I like that story, and I like how it builds. Well, I still have issues with it's not perfect. I like the overall feel of it. And like I said during the recap, for me, it's a better version, stronger, more subtle, nuanced version of the Koloff match from '86.
Yeah, it's a terrific match.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as MVP, that was really tricky for me, too. The way I looked at it was there was the 2 matches I talked about. I couldn't put match of the night to, and then the one I actually didn't mention yet, which in this part, which is the whole thing with Sting and Dusty and the Road Warriors. I liked all of them in it, just again, finish and all that, yada. So I really came down to me between picking Sting or Rick Steiner as my MVP, because for me, both of them really shined in the role they had, and they did their part very well. So yeah, for me, it came down to Sting or Rick Steiner. God, I'm even as I'm saying that, I'm still not 100% set on it. I feel like I gave it to Sting, because I think Sting's part in the match is the least blemished, because he did a really good job. It's just they did that finish.
John?
Match of the night has to go to the Road Warriors versus Dusty Rhodes and Sting.
Okay.
Like I said, I want everyone in there to win.
Sure.
Like that's like the ideal match, taking the favorites out of other Starrcades and just putting them against each other.
Yeah.
I can see that.
But that said, my MVP for the night does not come from that match at all.
Oh.
Ooh.
And I think you will be quite surprised by who I choose. And I'm going to go with Rick Steiner.
All right.
Because I enjoyed his character. I enjoyed that they did all the heel stuff of, the storyline where they, he shouldn't have won and he came back and the crowd was loving it. Like at that point, there were some other big points of the night where they were just ecstatic, but I think that the biggest one at that point was for Rick, and he's doing laps and he was clearly there, and even the promo afterwards was nice, even though the sound cut out. I think that I liked the joking. It was jovial overall, and I enjoyed his character. So, and his abilities, So I choose Rick.
Honestly, re-listening to that promo made me really unsure going to actually ask me. I had written down Sting or Rick Steiner in my notes, but I was 80% towards Sting. But hearing it again, I'm like, oh, maybe not. That's Richard Backing.
Yeah, it's just such a fun character-driven promo that just works really well.
Absolutely.
Well, this is going to be interesting. I think this will be the very first show that we've not had at least two of us agreeing on one of our picks.
All right.
So, for me, the match of the night is Rick Steiner versus Mike Rotunda.
All right.
I complained a bit about some over-reliance on headlocks for transitions in this one, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Every single other thing about this match is amazing. Every move is crisp and perfect. There's a ton of variety, a great mix of amateur wrestling and big power moves, some of the best clotheslines I have ever seen from both guys. Top it all off with a really great storyline and a lovable face in Rick Steiner, and you get some amazing crowd interaction. What really did it for me, though, was just that sight of an elated Steiner racing around the ring post-match, overjoyed and pointing in disbelief and happiness at Rotunda, and grabbing the title and running full tilt with it overhead, all while the crowd cheers wildly. I actually teared up a little watching that. It was a beautiful moment.
It's a great moment, absolutely.
Yeah. For MVP, there's a ton of good choices for MVP tonight, some of which you've already mentioned. Rick Steiner, of course, deserves a mention for that moment and the rest of that match and his promo. Mike Rotunda provided a really great foil. Flair, of course, is brilliant.
Obviously.
Sting deserves particular praise for his energy and unmatched crowd reaction tonight, and that crazy dive outside in particular.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm giving it to Lex Luger.
Ah.
Luger's here in a match against Ric Flair. He actually doesn't have to work that hard to make that work.
True.
Flair is so good by this point that he could, as the saying goes, carry a broomstick to a good match. But Luger pushed himself really hard, and he put on the best show he possibly could, keeping up with Flair in a fast-paced and very lengthy match. The announcers talked about him improving his cardio, and I don't think that was all story. Luger clearly came prepared for a long performance, and he put on a great show. All the little details just seemed to come together for him perfectly. So, Lex Luger is my MVP for tonight.
Fair enough.
I'm glad you chose Lex. That was my next choice.
I was wondering if that was gonna get your way.
I certainly considered him. Yeah, definitely didn't draw him out. Yeah.
I also want to mention the surprise of the night here. Tommy Rogers surprised me tonight. He really made the Fantastics versus the Varsity Club match superb. Had a whole bunch of cool spots that I wasn't expecting to see at all. It was a great match, but he just stood out in it and really constantly seemed to have some new cool thing to do or a perfectly timed spot that really impressed me. So I just wanted to note him in particular.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that wraps up our review of Starrcade 88, True Grit. I hope you've enjoyed... yeah. True Grit to
There you go.
To True Grit.
I hope that you've enjoyed listening to us here tonight. Next time, we'll be back to review Starrcade 89, Future Shock. If you've enjoyed listening to us here tonight, you can find further podcast episodes on iTunes, Google Play Podcasts, and Spotify. You can also follow us on Twitter at Let's Go to the Ring. That's with the number 2 in place of the word 2. You can also find us on Facebook by searching for Let's Go to the Ring. If you've enjoyed the show, please do help us spread the word. Many thanks to OSW Review for attendance and pay-per-view figures tonight. This is Bob Moore for Alec Pridgeon and John Mullins, signing off. Good night, everybody.
And happy wrestling.
Get some rest.